The shrill ring of my phone pierced the air, shattering the fragile peace I'd managed to cultivate during my rare day off. I knew who it was before I even glanced at the screen. Simon, my husband, the man who'd turned my life upside down with his latest scheme. "Caroline, we need to talk about Mom." Simon's voice crackled through the speaker, tension evident in every syllable. I sighed, pinching the bridge of my nose. "Simon, I thought we settled this yesterday. I can't quit my job to take care of Patricia full-time. It's just not feasible." "But she needs us, Caroline. She's my mother, for God's sake. She had a terrible fall, and you're a nurse. Who better to look after her?" I felt my blood pressure rising. "I'm a nurse at the hospital, Simon. That's my career, not a convenient skill set for you to exploit whenever it suits you." "Exploit? Is that what you think I'm doing?" His voice rose an octave. "I'm trying to take care of my family." "And what about our family, Simon? What about our future? Your business venture failed. We're barely staying afloat as it is. My job is the only thing keeping us from financial ruin." There was a heavy pause on the other end of the line. When Simon spoke again, his voice was low and dangerous. "So that's it then? Money is more important to you than family?" I felt as if I'd been slapped. "How dare you? I've supported you through thick and thin. I stood by you when you quit your stable job to chase your dreams. I've been the one holding us together while you've been off playing entrepreneur." "Playing entrepreneur?" Simon's voice dripped with venom. "I was trying to build a better life for us." "And how did that work out, Simon? We're drowning in debt, and now you want me to quit my job to become your mother's full-time caretaker? The same mother who can't stand the sight of me?" "She doesn't hate you, Caroline. She's just difficult." I laughed bitterly. "Difficult? That's the understatement of the century. She's made it clear from day one that I'm not good enough for her precious son." "Look, I know it's not ideal, but—" "Not ideal?" I interrupted, my voice rising. "Simon, your mother fell down the stairs because she refused to use the walker we bought her. She won't listen to reason. How am I supposed to care for someone who won't even accept help?" "She'll listen to you if you're there full-time. You just need to give it a chance." I closed my eyes, trying to calm the storm of emotions raging inside me. "Simon, I can't do this. I won't do this. I love you, but I won't set myself on fire to keep your mother warm." "So that's it? You're choosing your job over my mother's well-being, over our marriage?" His words hit me like a physical blow. "That's not fair, Simon. You can't put this all on me. We're supposed to be a team." "Well, it doesn't feel like we're much of a team right now, does it?" The bitterness in his voice was palpable. I felt tears pricking at the corners of my eyes. "Simon, please, we need to talk about this rationally. Can you come home so we can discuss this face-to-face?" There was a long pause before he responded. "Fine. I'll be there in an hour. But Caroline, something's got to give. We can't go on like this." As the line went dead, I sank onto the couch, my head in my hands. How had we come to this? The man I'd loved since high school, the life we'd built together, it was all hanging by a thread. And as I sat there waiting for Simon to arrive, I couldn't shake the feeling that our conversation was going to change everything. I remember the day Simon dropped his bombshell like it was yesterday. The sun was setting, casting a warm glow through our kitchen window as I stirred a pot of pasta sauce. Simon burst through the door, his face flushed with excitement. "Caroline, I've got big news," he exclaimed, wrapping his arms around me from behind. I turned, raising an eyebrow. "Oh? Did you get that promotion?" He shook his head, grinning from ear to ear. "Even better. I quit." The wooden spoon clattered to the floor. "You what?" "I quit my job," Simon repeated, his eyes sparkling. "I'm starting my own business." I felt the blood drain from my face. "Simon, are you out of your mind? We have a mortgage, car payments, and we've been talking about starting a family. How can you just quit without discussing it with me first?" His smile faltered slightly. "I thought you'd be happy for me. This is our chance to build something of our own, to secure our future." I took a deep breath, trying to calm my racing heart. "And what exactly is this business?" "It's a tech startup," Simon explained, his enthusiasm returning. "We're developing an app that will revolutionize the way people shop for groceries. It's going to be huge, Caroline." I wanted to believe him. I wanted to share in his excitement. But all I could think about was the mountain of responsibilities we had and how precarious our situation had suddenly become. Simon? I love that you're ambitious, but this is a huge risk. What if it doesn't work out? He cupped my face in his hands, his eyes boring into mine. It will work out. I promise. I've done the research, I've got investors lined up. This is our ticket to financial freedom, Caroline. Don't you trust me? And there it was, the magic words. Trust. How could I tell him that while I loved him with all my heart, I didn't trust his judgment on this? How could I express my fears without crushing his dreams? Of course I trust you, I said softly, hating myself for the lie. I'm just worried. This is a big change. Simon's face lit up. I know it's scary, but think about it. In a year or two, we'll be set for life. No more worrying about money. No more living paycheck to paycheck. We can start that family we've been talking about, buy a bigger house, travel the world. His enthusiasm was infectious, and I found myself getting caught up in the dream. Maybe he was right. Maybe this was our chance at a better life. Okay, I said, forcing a smile. Let's do it. But promise me you'll be careful. We can't afford to lose everything. Simon pulled me into a tight embrace. I promise, Caroline, I won't let you down. As we stood there in our tiny kitchen, the forgotten pasta sauce burning on the stove, I couldn't shake the feeling that we were standing on the edge of a cliff. I wanted to believe in Simon's dream, to have faith in our future. But a nagging voice in the back of my mind whispered that this could be the beginning of the end. Later that night, as Simon slept peacefully beside me, I stared at the ceiling, my mind racing. How would we manage if his business failed? Could our marriage survive if I became the sole breadwinner? And what about his mother, Patricia? She'd never approved of me, always hinting that Simon could do better. How would she react to this news? I turned to look at Simon's sleeping face, so full of hope and determination. I loved him, but at that moment, I realized that love might not be enough to weather the storm that was coming. As I finally drifted off to sleep, one thought echoed in my mind. What have we done? The harsh, fluorescent lights of the hospital corridor seemed to mock me as I rushed towards the emergency room. My scrubs were wrinkled, my hair a mess, but I didn't care. I'd just received the call that would shatter the fragile peace I'd been clinging to for months. Caroline! Linda, my friend and fellow nurse, called out as I rounded the corner. I'm so sorry. I know you weren't supposed to be on shift tonight, but... I waved her off. It's fine. What happened? Linda's face was grim. It's Simon. He was brought in about an hour ago. Alcohol poisoning. My heart plummeted. What? But Simon hardly ever drinks. Well, he's certainly made up for lost time tonight, Linda said, her voice laced with concern. Caroline, it's bad. He was rambling about the business, about losing everything. I think he might have tried to hurt himself. I felt the world tilt on its axis. This couldn't be happening. Not Simon. Not my Simon. As if in a trance, I followed Linda into the ER. There he was, my husband, looking small and broken on the hospital bed. His face was ashen, dark circles under his eyes. An IV drip snaked into his arm, and the steady beep of the heart monitor filled the room. Oh, Simon, I whispered, taking his hand. What have you done? His eyes fluttered open, unfocused and glassy. Caroline? Is that you? I'm here, Simon. I'm here. He tried to sit up, but I gently pushed him back down. The business. He slurred. It's gone. Everything's gone. I've ruined us. My throat tightened. Shh, don't worry about that now. Just rest. But Simon was beyond rest. He gripped my hand with surprising strength. I'm so sorry, Caroline. I promised you the world, and I couldn't even keep the lights on. I'm a failure. Tears stung my eyes. You're not a failure, Simon. We'll figure this out. Together. He shook his head, his eyes wild. No, you don't understand. It's worse than you know. The investors, they're threatening to sue. And your savings. I used your savings for the last push. It's all gone. The room seemed to spin. My savings? The money I'd been squirreling away for years, dreaming of opening my own clinic someday. Simon, tell me you didn't. But I could see the truth in his eyes, clouded as they were with alcohol and shame. He had done it. He'd gambled everything. Our future, my dreams, on his failing business. I thought I could save it, he mumbled. Just needed a little more time, a little more money. I was so sure. I pulled my hand away, feeling as if I'd been burned. How could you, Simon? How could you do this without talking to me? I didn't want to worry you, he said, his voice small. I thought I could fix it. A bitter laugh escaped me. Fix it? Simon, you've destroyed everything we've worked for. everything we dreamed of. Suddenly, the door burst open, and Patricia stormed in, her face a mask of fury. "What have you done to my son?" she screeched, pointing an accusing finger at me. I stood up, my own anger rising to meet hers. "What I've done? Your precious son nearly drank himself to death and bankrupted us in the process." Patricia's eyes widened in shock, then narrowed dangerously. "Don't you dare blame Simon for this. If you had been a better wife, supported him properly." "Enough," I shouted, surprising even myself with the force of it. "I have supported Simon through everything. I've worked double shifts to keep us afloat while he chased his dreams. And now I find out he's thrown away our entire future without even consulting me." Simon stirred on the bed, reaching out weakly. "Caroline, please?" But I was beyond listening. The weight of everything, the stress, the betrayal, the shattered dreams came crashing down on me. I looked from Simon to Patricia, these two people who had taken so much and given so little in return. "I can't do this anymore," I said, my voice barely above a whisper. "I won't." As I turned to leave, Simon's broken voice followed me. "Caroline, don't go. I need you." I paused at the door, my hand on the handle. Without turning back, I said, "You should have thought of that before, Simon, before you gambled with our lives." And with that I walked out, leaving behind the ruins of the life I thought I knew. The shrill ring of my phone pierced the early morning silence, jolting me awake. I fumbled for it, my heart racing as I saw Simon's name on the screen. After everything that had happened, I almost didn't answer. But something, instinct maybe, made me press the green button. "Caroline?" Simon's voice was frantic. "It's Mom. She's had an accident." I sat bolt upright, sleep forgotten. "What happened?" "She fell down the stairs. She's at St. Mary's. Can you come, please?" I closed my eyes, torn between my instinct as a nurse to help and my anger at both Simon and Patricia. "Simon, I don't think—" "Please, Caroline," he interrupted, his voice breaking. "I know things are bad between us, but she's asking for you. You're the only nurse she trusts." Guilt washed over me. No matter how I felt about Patricia, I couldn't ignore a patient in need. "Fine. I'll be there in 20 minutes. The hospital was a whirlwind of activity when I arrived. I found Simon pacing outside Patricia's room, looking haggard and unkempt. "How is she?" I asked, professional mode kicking in. Simon ran a hand through his disheveled hair. "Broken hip, possible concussion. They're running tests now." I nodded, steeling myself before entering the room. Patricia lay in the bed, looking smaller and more fragile than I'd ever seen her. Her eyes lit up when she saw me, then quickly narrowed. "Oh, it's you," she said, her voice weak but still carrying that edge of disdain I knew so well. "I suppose Simon called you." I approached the bed, checking her vitals out of habit. "He did." "How are you feeling, Patricia?" She waved a hand dismissively. "Like I fell down a flight of stairs. How do you think I'm feeling?" I bit back a retort, reminding myself that she was injured and frightened. "Can you tell me what happened?" Patricia's face crumpled, and for a moment I saw past her prickly exterior to the vulnerable woman beneath. "I was trying to get the mail. I didn't want to use that blasted walker you and Simon got me. I thought I could manage, but—" She trailed off, a tear sliding down her cheek. Despite everything, I felt a pang of sympathy. I took her hand, surprised when she didn't pull away. "It's okay, Patricia. You're going to be all right." Just then, Simon walked in, his face a mask of concern. "What did the doctor say?" I turned to him, slipping into nurse mode. "They're still running tests, but it looks like she'll need surgery for the hip, and she'll need round-the-clock care during recovery." Simon's eyes met mine, and I saw the unspoken question there. Before he could voice it, Patricia spoke up. "I won't go to a nursing home," she declared. "I won't be shipped off like some unwanted parcel." Simon looked at me pleadingly. "Caroline, I know it's a lot to ask, but—" "No," I said firmly, cutting him off. "Simon, I can't quit my job to take care of your mother full-time. We've been over this." Patricia's grip on my hand tightened suddenly. "You'd abandon me in my time of need? After everything I've done for you?" I stared at her, incredulous. "Everything you've done for me? Patricia, you've never approved of me. You've criticized every decision I've made since the day Simon and I got married." "I was trying to make you better," Patricia snapped. "To make you worthy of my son." The room fell silent, the weight of her words hanging in the air. I pulled my hand away, feeling as if I'd been slapped. Simon stepped forward, his face a mix of shock and anger. "Mom, how could you say that?" But Patricia wasn't finished. She turned to Simon, her eyes blazing. "If she won't take care of me, then you'll have to choose, Simon. It's her or me." I looked between them, this mother and son who had taken so much from me already. In that moment, I realized I was at a crossroads. The decision I made now would shape the rest of my life. Taking a deep breath, I squared my shoulders and prepared to fight for my future. I stormed out of Patricia's hospital room, my hands shaking with a mixture of rage and disbelief. Simon followed close behind, calling my name, but I couldn't bear to look at him. I made it to the parking lot before he caught up, grabbing my arm. "Caroline, please wait," he pleaded, his voice desperate. I whirled around, yanking my arm free. "Wait for what, Simon? For you to choose between your mother and your wife? For you to ask me once again to give up everything I've worked for?" Simon's face crumpled. "I'm sorry. I don't know what to do. Mom needs care, and we can't afford a nurse." "Because you gambled away our savings," I snapped, the words tasting bitter in my mouth. He flinched as if I'd struck him. "I know I messed up, but Caroline, she's my mother. I can't abandon her." I took a deep breath, trying to calm the storm raging inside me. "And what about me, Simon? What about our life together? Am I supposed to put everything on hold indefinitely?" Before he could answer, my phone buzzed. It was Linda. "Caroline, where are you? The hospital board meeting is about to start. They're announcing the new head nurse position." My heart sank. In all the chaos, I'd completely forgotten about the meeting, the chance I'd been working towards for years. "I'll be right there," I said, hanging up and turning back to Simon. "I have to go." His eyes widened in panic. "But what about Mom? What are we going to do?" I shook my head, feeling the weight of the world on my shoulders. "I don't know, Simon. I need some time to think." I left him standing there, looking lost and broken, as I rushed back into the hospital. My mind was a whirlwind of conflicting emotions: guilt, anger, frustration, and an overwhelming sense of being torn in two. The board meeting was already in progress when I slipped in, taking a seat next to Linda. She shot me a concerned look, but I waved her off, focusing on the hospital administrator at the front of the room. "After careful consideration," he was saying, "we've decided to offer the position of head nurse, too." My heart pounded in my ears. This was it. The moment that could change everything. Caroline Mitchell. For a moment, I couldn't breathe. Linda squeezed my arm, beaming, as congratulations erupted around me. I should have been elated, but all I felt was a crushing sense of dread. As the meeting adjourned, my phone buzzed again. "Simon. Caroline, please come back. Mom's asking for you. She says she's sorry." I closed my eyes, feeling the walls closing in. On one side, the career I'd worked so hard for, the chance to make a real difference. On the other, my family, broken and dysfunctional as it was. Linda touched my shoulder gently. "Caroline, are you okay?" I looked at her, feeling tears well up in my eyes. "I don't know what to do, Linda. I've just been offered my dream job, but Simon, he wants me to quit, to take care of his mother full-time." Linda's eyes widened in disbelief. "He can't be serious? After everything you've been through?" "He is," I whispered, "and I don't know if our marriage can survive if I say no." Linda took my hands in hers, her gaze steady and compassionate. "Caroline, listen to me. You are an incredible nurse and an amazing woman. You've supported Simon through thick and thin, but at some point you have to put yourself first." Her words hit me like a thunderbolt. Put myself first. When was the last time I'd done that? As if on cue, my phone buzzed again. Simon's desperate plea glowed on the screen. "Caroline, please. I need you. We need you." I stared at the message, feeling the weight of the decision before me. Stay and accept the position I dreamed of, or go back to Simon and Patricia, sacrificing my career for a family that had taken me for granted for so long. In that moment, I knew I had to make a choice, one that would change the course of my life forever. I stood in our living room, my hands trembling as I clutched the envelope containing my new contract. Head nurse. The position I'd dreamed of for years, and yet here I was, torn between my career and the remnants of my crumbling marriage. Simon paced back and forth, his face a mask of desperation. "Caroline, please, you have to understand. Mom needs us. She has no one else." I took a deep breath, steeling myself for the conversation I knew would change everything. And what about what I need, Simon? What about the life we planned together? He stopped pacing, his eyes meeting mine. There was a hardness there I'd never seen before. Sometimes we have to make sacrifices for family. Sacrifices? I echoed, disbelief coloring my voice. I've been making sacrifices since the day you quit your job to chase your dreams, dreams that left us bankrupt and broken. Simon flinched as if I'd struck him. That's not fair. I was trying to build a better life for us. And how did that work out? I shot back, years of pent-up frustration boiling over. Now you want me to give up everything I've worked for to take care of your mother, a woman who's never shown me an ounce of respect? She's trying, Caroline. She apologized, remember? I laughed bitterly. One apology doesn't erase years of criticism and contempt. Simon's face hardened. So that's it? You're choosing your job over your family? Family? I repeated, the word tasting like ash in my mouth. What family, Simon? The one where I give and give until there's nothing left of me? The one where my dreams don't matter as long as you and your mother are taken care of? He stepped closer, his voice low and dangerous. I never thought you could be so selfish. Something snapped inside me. Selfish? I've supported you through everything, Simon. I stood by you when you quit your job. I worked double shifts to keep us afloat while you chased your dreams. I've given everything to this marriage, and it's still not enough for you. Simon's eyes flashed with anger. If that's how you feel, maybe we should just end this now. The room fell silent, his words hanging in the air between us. I felt as if all the oxygen had been sucked out of the room. What are you saying? I whispered, hardly daring to breathe. Simon's jaw clenched. I'm saying you have a choice to make, Caroline. Take care of my mother, or we get a divorce. The world seemed to tilt on its axis. I stared at him, this man I'd loved since high school, now a stranger demanding I choose between my self-respect and our marriage. In that moment, something crystallized within me, a clarity I'd been lacking for years. Without a word, I walked to the desk and pulled out a folder. Inside were the divorce papers I'd had drawn up months ago, but never had the courage to use. Simon's eyes widened as I placed them on the coffee table between us. Caroline, what are you doing? My hand shook as I picked up a pen, but my voice was steady. I'm making a choice, Simon. The choice you forced me to make. Wait, he said, panic creeping into his voice. Let's talk about this. We can figure something out. But I was beyond talking. Years of suppressed anger, resentment, and disappointment fueled my actions as I signed my name on the dotted line. Simon lunged forward, trying to snatch the papers away, but I held firm. Caroline, stop! You can't do this! I looked up at him, tears streaming down my face, but resolve burning in my chest. I can, and I am. I choose me, Simon. For once in my life, I choose me. As I walked out the door, leaving Simon staring at the signed divorce papers, I felt a strange mix of terror and exhilaration. I had no idea what the future held, but for the first time in years, I felt like I could breathe. The pounding on my apartment door jolted me awake. I glanced at the clock, 3:17 a.m. My heart raced as I stumbled to the door, already knowing who it was. Caroline, open up, please! Simon's voice was ragged, desperate. I hesitated, my hand on the doorknob. It had been 3 days since I'd walked out, 3 days of silence broken only by a barrage of increasingly frantic voicemails and texts. Against my better judgment, I opened the door. Simon stood there, disheveled and wild-eyed. The scent of alcohol wafted off him. What are you doing here, Simon? I asked, my voice steadier than I felt. He pushed past me into the apartment. We need to talk. You can't do this, Caroline. You can't throw away our marriage like this. I closed the door, steeling myself. I'm not throwing anything away. I'm saving myself. Simon ran his hands through his hair, pacing like a caged animal. I'll do anything. I'll get a job. I'll find a way to take care of Mom without you quitting. Just, please, don't leave me. The desperation in his voice tugged at my heart, but I forced myself to remember why I'd left. It's too late for that, Simon. You made your choice when you gave me that ultimatum. He whirled on me, eyes blazing. And you made yours when you signed those papers. How could you do that? 20 years together, and you throw it all away in an instant? Anger flared within me. An instant? Is that what you think this was? Simon, I've been dying inside for years, watching you chase your dreams while mine withered away. I've given everything to you and your mother, and it's never been enough. That's not true. he protested weakly. Isn't it? I countered. When was the last time you asked about my dreams? When was the last time you stood up to your mother when she belittled me? Simon's face crumpled. I'm sorry. I know I've made mistakes, but we can fix this. We have to fix this. I shook my head, feeling a strange calm settle over me. No, Simon, we can't. Some things once broken can't be put back together. He stepped closer, his eyes pleading. Caroline, I love you. Doesn't that count for anything? For a moment I wavered. The weight of our shared history pressed down on me. High school sweethearts, the early struggles of our marriage, the dreams we'd once shared. But then I remembered the loneliness, the constant sacrifices, the feeling of being slowly erased. Love isn't enough, I said softly. Not when it comes at the cost of my self-respect, my dreams, my very identity. Simon's face hardened. So that's it? You're really choosing your job over our family? I'm choosing myself, I replied, my voice growing stronger. For the first time in years, I'm putting myself first. He laughed bitterly. And what about Mom? Are you just going to abandon her? I felt a flash of guilt, quickly replaced by resolve. Patricia has other options. There are care facilities, home health aides. It's not my responsibility to give up my life for her. She'll never forgive you for this, Simon spat. I can live with that, I said, surprised to find I meant it. Simon's shoulders sagged, defeat written in every line of his body. I don't know how to live without you, Caroline. For a moment, I saw the boy I'd fallen in love with all those years ago. But he wasn't that boy anymore, and I wasn't that girl. You'll learn, I said gently. We both will. He looked at me one last time, his eyes filled with a mixture of anger, desperation, and something that might have been respect. Then, without another word, he turned and walked out the door. As it closed behind him, I felt a weight lift from my shoulders. The road ahead was uncertain, fraught with challenges I couldn't yet imagine. But for the first time in years, I felt truly free. I took a deep breath, ready to face whatever came next, on my own terms. 6 months after signing the divorce papers, I found myself sitting in a quaint coffee shop, my hands wrapped around a steaming latte. The aroma of freshly ground beans filled the air, a comforting contrast to the tumultuous emotions swirling inside me. Caroline? A familiar voice called out. I looked up to see Mark, Simon's former colleague, approaching my table. Mark, hi, I said, gesturing for him to join me. It's been a while. He sat down, his expression a mix of concern and curiosity. I heard about you and Simon. I'm sorry things didn't work out. I nodded, surprised to find that the pain I'd expected to feel had dulled to a distant ache. Thank you. It's been an adjustment. Mark hesitated, then leaned in. Listen, Caroline, there's something you should know about Simon, something I probably should have told you years ago. My heart quickened. What is it? Simon was never as competent as he made himself out to be, Mark said, his voice low. At work, he was always taking credit for other people's ideas, schmoozing with the bosses while others did the heavy lifting. When he left to start his own business, we all knew it was doomed to fail. I sat back, stunned, but he always seemed so confident, so sure of himself. Mark shook his head. It was all a facade. He was terrified of failure, of not living up to everyone's expectations. I think that's why he clung to you so tightly. You were his safety net. As Mark's words sank in, I felt a strange mix of anger and relief wash over me. Anger at the years I'd spent propping up Simon's fragile ego, and relief that I'd finally broken free. Thank you for telling me this, Mark, I said, my voice steady. It helps. After Mark left, I sat there, lost in thought. Memories flooded back. Simon's grandiose plans, his reluctance to face reality, his constant need for validation. How had I not seen it before? My phone buzzed, jolting me back to the present. It was Linda. Turn on the news. Channel 5. Confused, I pulled out my tablet and loaded the local news stream. My jaw dropped as I saw the headline, Local Businessman Arrested for Fraud. There, being led away in handcuffs, was Simon. The reporter's voice filled in the details. A Ponzi scheme, investors defrauded of millions, years of financial manipulation finally exposed. I sat there, frozen, as the full impact of what I'd escaped hit me. If I'd stayed, if I'd given in to Simon's demands, I would have been dragged down with him. My phone rang again. This time, it was Patricia. Caroline, her voice was uncharacteristically subdued. I owe you an apology. I held my breath, hardly daring to believe what I was hearing. I saw the news, she continued. All these years, I thought Simon could do no wrong, and I blamed you for not supporting him enough. But now I see. You were the strong one. You saw what I couldn't or wouldn't see. Tears pricked at my eyes. Thank you, Patricia. That means a lot. After we hung up, I sat there, overwhelmed by the day's revelations. The Caroline of 6 months ago would have been devastated, would have blamed herself for not seeing through Simon's lies. But I wasn't that Caroline anymore. I stood up, gathered my things, and walked out of the coffee shop. The sun was setting, painting the sky in brilliant shades of orange and pink. As I walked towards my car, I felt lighter than I had in years. Yes, I'd lost my marriage. Yes, I'd been deceived. But I'd also found something invaluable, myself. I thought about the head nurse position I'd accepted, the new apartment I'd made my own, the friendships I'd rekindled. For the first time in years, I was living life on my own terms. As I drove home, I realized that this wasn't an ending at all. It was a beginning. A chance to rewrite my story, to chase my own dreams, to love myself as fiercely as I'd once loved Simon. The road ahead was uncertain, but I was ready to face it. Because now I knew the truth. I was stronger than I'd ever imagined, and the best chapters of my life were yet to be written.
Numbers have always fascinated me, especially the ones that don't add up, like the $5,000 missing from our joint account, or the 3 nights a week Ryan claims he's working late, or the 2 wedding rings I'm staring at on our bedroom dresser. One his, one mine. Only mine is where it should be. I'm Fiona, and I used to write code that made numbers dance. Now I'm just trying to make sense of the ones that keep slapping me in the face. The bank statement trembles in my hands as I scroll through the transactions on my phone. Another withdrawal, this time for $3,500. No note, no explanation, just money vanishing like morning mist. The kind of money that could pay our mortgage for 2 months. Ryan, I call out, my voice steadier than I feel. Can you come here for a minute? His footsteps echo down the hallway, each one matching my quickening pulse. He appears in the doorway, laptop tucked under one arm, that familiar half-smile playing on his lips, the smile that used to make me feel safe. Now it just makes me feel stupid. What's up, honey? I'm in the middle of something important. So am I. I turn my phone screen toward him. Want to explain these withdrawals? The smile doesn't falter, but something shifts behind his eyes. Just some business expenses. You know how it is with the new project. No, Ryan, I don't know how it is, because you never tell me anything anymore. He sets his laptop down with deliberate care. Look, I know you're used to understanding everything, Miss Software Engineer, but some things in business are complicated. Former software engineer, I correct him. The old wound still raw. And basic math isn't complicated. 5,000 here. 3,500 there. That's our savings disappearing. Jesus, Fiona. He runs a hand through his hair, exasperation creeping into his voice. This is exactly why I don't tell you everything. You're just a housewife now. You wouldn't understand the pressures I'm under. The words hit like a physical blow. Just a housewife. 3 years ago, I was leading development teams. Now I'm just a housewife who apparently can't understand basic business concepts. Try me, I challenge him, standing up. Explain it to the housewife who used to debug systems you couldn't even comprehend. Don't start this again. He reaches for his laptop. I have a meeting with Mark in 20 minutes. We can discuss this later. With Mark at 8:30 in the evening? Yes, with Mark. His tone sharpens. Some of us still have careers to maintain. He turns to leave, but I'm not finished. Does Grace know about these late meetings? Ryan freezes, his back to me. For just a moment, I see his shoulders tense. Then he laughs, but it sounds hollow. Mark's wife. What does she have to do with anything? I don't know, Ryan. You tell me. He spins around, and now the smile is gone completely. You know what? I don't have time for your paranoid accusations. When you're ready to act like an adult, we can talk about the finances. The door slams behind him, leaving me alone with the numbers that don't add up and the questions that won't go away. I pick up his wedding ring from the dresser, feeling its weight in my palm. He claims he takes it off to wash his hands, but it's been happening more frequently lately. My phone buzzes. A text from Olivia. Coffee tomorrow. We need to talk. I text back a quick yes before opening my laptop. It's been a while since I've done any serious coding, but some skills never leave you, like tracking digital footprints, or following money trails, or piecing together patterns that others try to hide. Ryan thinks I'm just a housewife who wouldn't understand. He's about to learn how dangerous underestimating someone can be. The coffee shop bustles with morning regulars, but Olivia's face draws my attention like a beacon of worry. She's already ordered my usual black coffee, no sugar, and her fingers drum an anxious rhythm on the ceramic mug. "You look like hell," she says, as I slide into the booth. "Thanks. I feel worse." I wrap my hands around the warm cup, anchoring myself. Ryan's mother is coming over for dinner tonight. Apparently, she needs to discuss my concerning behavior with both of us. Olivia's eyebrows shoot up. Emily's involved now. That's rich, considering she can't balance her own checkbook without Ryan's help. She called this morning, said she's worried about my accusations and how they might affect Ryan's career. The coffee burns my throat, but I welcome the pain. Funny how she's more concerned about his career than our marriage. Have you shown her the bank statements? Ryan got to her first, told her I'm becoming paranoid, unstable. I let out a bitter laugh. Apparently, giving up my career has left me with too much time to imagine things. A text notification lights up my phone. "Emily, bringing that lovely pot roast you used to love. We'll sort this all out tonight, dear." Olivia leans forward, her voice dropping. "Listen, there's something else you should know. I saw Ryan yesterday at Meridian Plaza. My stomach clenches. The luxury apartments? He was with a woman, blonde, expensive clothes, around our age." Olivia hesitates. "They looked comfortable together." The description matches Grace Turner perfectly. I've met her twice at company functions, watched her laugh at Ryan's jokes with practiced elegance. "Did they see you?" "No, they were too absorbed in each other." Olivia reaches across the table, squeezing my hand. "Fee, you need to protect yourself. Start gathering evidence, documenting everything." "I already am." I pull out my laptop, typing rapidly. "Remember that tracking app I developed at my old company? I modified it last night. Ryan's phone is already sending me location data." Olivia's eyes widen. "Is that legal?" "It's our shared family plan. His phone is technically joint property." The screen fills with data points, each one a digital breadcrumb. "Look at this pattern. Every Tuesday and Thursday, 2-hour stops at Meridian Plaza. The same times he's supposedly meeting with Mark." "Exactly." I close the laptop, my mind racing. But Mark's usually at the downtown office on Thursdays. I checked his public calendar. The bell above the coffee shop door chimes, and Emily Carter walks in, her perfectly coiffed hair and pressed outfit, a stark contrast to my hastily thrown-together appearance. She spots us immediately, her practiced smile never reaching her eyes. "Fiona, dear, what a lovely surprise." She glides over, ignoring Olivia completely. "I was just shopping for tonight's dinner. You are still planning to be there, aren't you?" "Wouldn't miss it," I reply, matching her tone. "Ryan's so busy lately. It's rare to have him home for dinner." Something flickers across Emily's face, doubt, concern, but it's gone in an instant. "Yes, well, success requires sacrifice. You understood that when you married him." She pats my shoulder condescendingly. 6:30 sharp, dear, we have so much to discuss." After she leaves, Olivia lets out a low whistle. That woman could freeze hell with a smile. She's always been Team Ryan. I start packing up my laptop. But maybe that's exactly what I need tonight. "What are you planning?" Emily prides herself on appearances, on her perfect family image. I stand, shouldering my bag. Let's see how she handles it when that image cracks. "Fee, be careful. Ryan's got her wrapped around his finger." "Maybe," I smile, thinking of the data quietly collecting on my laptop. But even perfect sons make mistakes, and I'm done being the unstable wife who imagines things. Walking home, I check my phone again. Ryan's location blinks steadily at his office. But a quick check of his credit card shows a lunch charge at a restaurant near Meridian Plaza. More numbers that don't add up, more lies piling up like kindling. Tonight, at dinner, I'll strike the first match. Emily wants to discuss my concerning behavior. Fine, let's discuss everything. Every withdrawal, every late meeting, every missing hour. Let's see how many cracks appear in the perfect family facade when the truth starts seeping through. Emily's pot roast sits untouched on my plate, while Ryan regales us with another story about his latest project's success. His mother beams, hanging on every word. But I'm watching his hands. The way his right index finger keeps tapping the stem of his wine glass. A tell he's had since I first met him. And Mark was so impressed with the presentation. He's considering me for the Singapore expansion. Ryan raises his glass. To new beginnings. Singapore? The word drops like a stone in my stomach. You never mentioned Singapore before. Emily jumps in. Oh, wouldn't that be wonderful? Such an opportunity for advancement. My phone buzzes quietly in my lap. A notification from my tracking app. Grace Turner's Instagram just tagged a new location, Meridian Plaza. I take a slow sip of wine, letting the pieces click into place. Speaking of Mark, I say carefully, how's Grace doing? I heard she's been quite busy lately. Ryan's finger freezes mid-tap. I wouldn't know. Mark handles most of her social engagements. Really? Because I heard she's taken quite an interest in real estate. Particularly in Meridian Plaza. The silence that follows is absolute. Emily looks between us, confusion creasing her perfectly maintained facade. Meridian Plaza. Isn't that where that horrible divorce scandal happened last year? The CEO and his secretary. Mother, Ryan warns, but I'm already pulling out my phone. Funny you should mention scandals, Emily. Would you like to see some interesting financial records? I slide my phone across the table. These withdrawals coincide perfectly with the rental payments for Unit 1504 at Meridian Plaza, the same unit Grace visits every Tuesday and Thursday. Emily's face drains of color as she scrolls through the transactions. Ryan, darling, there must be some mistake. There's no mistake. I stand up, my chair scraping against the floor. Your perfect son has been using our savings to fund his affair with his boss's wife. Would you like to see the location data too? Or the credit card statements from all those business dinners? Ryan slams his hand on the table, making the plates jump. That's enough. Mother, Fiona's been unstable lately. She's imagining. Imagining what? I cut him off. The lipstick on your collar last week? The mysterious calls you take in the garage? Or maybe I imagined Grace's car leaving Meridian Plaza 10 minutes after you every Thursday. Emily's hands shake as she sets down my phone. Ryan, please tell me this isn't true. Of course it's not true, but his voice cracks. That familiar tell when he's lying. She's trying to destroy everything I've built because she's jealous of my success. I laugh, and the sound surprises even me. Sharp and cold as broken glass. Success? Is that what you call embezzling company funds to keep your mistress in a luxury apartment? You bitch. Ryan stands, looming over me. You think you're so clever with your little tracking apps and investigations. You're nothing but a washed-up programmer playing detective. Ryan, Emily gasps, but I hold up my hand. No, let him finish. Let him explain to you why he's been stealing from our accounts. Let him tell you about the Singapore position. The one Mark doesn't actually know about yet, because it's just an escape plan with Grace. My phone buzzes again. This time it's a text from Olivia. Mark's on his way. Grace confessed everything. Ryan must see something change in my expression because he grabs his keys. This is ridiculous. I don't have to listen to these accusations. Running to Grace, I call after him. Better hurry. Mark should be there any minute. He freezes in the doorway, and for the first time, I see real fear in his eyes. Emily stands shakily, her perfect world crumbling around her. I trusted you, I say quietly. We both did. But you forgot something important, Ryan. You forgot that before I was your wife, before I was just a housewife, I was the person who designed the security systems you thought you could outsmart. The sound of a car pulling into our driveway makes Ryan flinch. Through the window, I see Mark Turner stepping out, his face set in stone. You wanted new beginnings. I pick up my wine glass, raising it in a mock toast. Well, here they come. The front doorbell rings, and 3 years of lies begin their final unraveling. Emily sinks back into her chair, her pot roast growing cold, while I stand ready to watch everything burn. Sometimes revenge doesn't need to be served cold. Sometimes it just needs perfect timing. The aftermath of dinner spreads through our house like a toxic cloud. Mark and Ryan's shouting match in the study has devolved into tense silence, while Emily sits in the living room, mechanically folding and refolding her napkin. I stand in the kitchen, washing dishes that don't need washing, listening to the tick of the clock on the wall. The front door opens and closes. Grace's heels click across the hardwood floor. I recognize her walk now, after all those surveillance videos. She pauses in the kitchen doorway, her designer outfit slightly disheveled, mascara smudged beneath her eyes. "He said you were unstable," she says quietly, "that you were imagining things because you couldn't handle losing your career." I place another clean plate in the drying rack. Funny how he uses the same lies for everyone. I didn't know about the money. Grace steps closer, her perfume mingling with the dish soap. He told me the apartment was from his bonus. There was no bonus. I turn off the water, finally facing her. Just like there's no Singapore expansion. He's been stealing from both of us. A crash from the study makes us both jump. Emily appears in the doorway, her perfect composure finally cracking. Mark's called the company's legal team. They're pressing charges. The words hang in the air like smoke. Pressing charges. The revenge I wanted now has teeth, and they're sinking deeper than I expected. "Fiona." Ryan's voice makes me stiffen. He stands in the kitchen entrance, Mark's looming presence behind him. "Tell them you made a mistake. Tell them you misunderstood the transactions. Like you misunderstood your wedding vows." The words come out sharper than I intended. "Don't be dramatic." He steps forward, that familiar manipulative smile playing at his lips. "We can fix this. Together. Remember when we first met, how you said you'd do anything for us?" "Ryan," Mark warns, but Ryan continues. "I can explain everything. The money, Grace, all of it. But I need you to trust me one more time." For a moment, I almost want to believe him. 3 years of marriage, of shared dreams and promises, pull at me like gravity. Then I notice Grace's hand trembling as she grips her purse. See Emily's devastated expression, and something inside me hardens. "Trust you." I reach for my laptop, opening files I've spent weeks compiling. "Like you trusted me with this?" The screen fills with transaction records, text messages, location data, a digital trail of betrayal laid bare. But it's the last file that makes Ryan's smile finally fade. Photographs from his private email, documenting more than just an affair. Corporate espionage? Mark's voice is deadly quiet. "You've been selling our patents?" Ryan lunges for the laptop, but I'm faster, stepping back. "The money wasn't just for Grace, was it? You needed it to cover your tracks with your other buyers." "You bitch." He swings at me, but Mark grabs him, pinning him against the counter. Grace lets out a small scream, and Emily sinks into a kitchen chair. "I trusted you," I say, my voice steady despite my racing heart. Even when I found the first discrepancies, I wanted to believe there was an explanation. "But you didn't just betray me, Ryan. You betrayed everyone in this room." The sound of sirens grows in the distance. Mark must have called them before confronting Ryan. Grace backs away toward the door, her face ashen. "I'm sorry," she whispers, though I'm not sure to whom. Ryan struggles against Mark's grip. "You have no idea what you've done. When this gets out," it already has. I show him my phone, where Olivia's text glows. "Documents received. Legal team processing everything now." The sirens are louder now. Red and blue lights painting our kitchen walls like a garish nightmare. Emily reaches for my hand, surprising me. "I should have seen it," she says softly. All those times he said you were imagining things. We all wanted to believe him. I squeeze her hand, watching as police cars pull into our driveway. That's what makes a good liar so dangerous. Ryan's face contorts with rage and fear as uniformed officers approach our door. In this moment, I should feel triumph, satisfaction, the sweet taste of revenge. Instead, I feel something unexpected: freedom. The weight of secrets and lies lifts from my shoulders like a heavy coat, leaving me lighter, clearer. Sometimes the truth doesn't set you free. Sometimes you have to set it free yourself. And damn the consequences. The police station's fluorescent lights cast harsh shadows across Mark's face as he slides a manila envelope across the interview room table. There's more, he says, his voice tight. The patents weren't just being sold, they were being weaponized. I open the envelope with trembling fingers, spreading out documents that make my stomach turn. Lines of code I recognize. My code, from projects I'd worked on years ago, twisted and repurposed into something malicious. Ryan didn't just steal from the company, Mark continues. He sold your old security protocols to competitors. They're using them to build backdoors into financial systems. The room suddenly feels too small, too bright. My protocols were defensive. They were meant to protect. I know. Mark rubs his temples. That's why we need your help. You're the only one who understands how these systems work. A detective enters, carrying coffee I didn't ask for. Mrs. Carter, we'll need you to testify about the original code architecture. No. The word comes out before I can stop it. I can't be involved. The evidence you have is enough. It's not. Mark leans forward. Without your testimony, Ryan's lawyers will claim the code modifications were authorized. He's already spinning a story about you hacking company servers for revenge. My coffee cup trembles, dark liquid sloshing over the rim. Of course, Ryan would try to turn this around, make me the villain. Even now, he's playing chess while I'm playing catch-up. My phone buzzes. Olivia, Emily's at my house. She found something in Ryan's old files. Come quick. I need time to think, I tell Mark, standing up. The detective starts to protest, but Mark waves him off. 24 hours, Mark says. That's all we can give you. The drive to Olivia's house feels surreal. Streetlights blurring past like stars. Emily meets me at the door, clutching a leather portfolio I recognize from Ryan's study. I was cleaning, she says, hands shaking as she opens it. I thought if I kept things normal. Inside are more documents, bank statements, offshore accounts, and emails dating back 5 years. Before our marriage, before everything. He planned this, Emily whispers. He chose you because of your expertise, because you could give him access to— Stop. The word comes out sharp enough to make both Emily and Olivia flinch. I scan the emails, each one a knife twisting deeper. Ryan discussing my capabilities with unknown contacts, evaluating my potential usefulness, planning how to convince me to leave my job. Fiona, Olivia starts, but I'm already moving, grabbing my keys. Where are you going? Emily calls after me. To finish this, the drive to the detention center, where they're holding Ryan, takes 20 minutes. I spend each one remembering every lie, every manipulation, every moment I doubted myself because he told me I was being paranoid. He's waiting in the visitation room, orange jumpsuit stark against his pale skin. The smile he gives me is the same one he used when telling me I was imagining things. I knew you'd come, he says. You always were predictable. Like how you predicted I'd quit my job to support your career. I lay Emily's portfolio on the table between us. Or how you predicted I'd be too broken to notice what you were doing with my old code. The smile falters, just slightly. Everything I did was for us. No. I lean forward, dropping my voice. Everything you did was because you underestimated me. You thought I was just a housewife who wouldn't understand. Be careful, Fiona. His voice hardens. You're not the only one with evidence. One phone call, and certain people will be very interested in your recent activities. You mean like the tracking software? The financial traces? I smile, and for the first time, I see real fear in his eyes. Go ahead, show them. Every line of code is documented, every access point logged. I learned from the best, after all. Standing, I gather the portfolio. I'm testifying tomorrow, not for Mark, not for the company, but for every person you've manipulated and betrayed. And when I'm done, you won't just lose your freedom, you'll lose your last shred of control. You'll regret this, he calls as I reach the door. You have no idea what you're starting. I turn back, meeting his gaze one last time. No, Ryan, I'm not starting anything. I'm finishing what you began. The door closes behind me with a final click, and I step into the evening air, my path suddenly clear. Sometimes revenge isn't about destroying someone. It's about reclaiming your own power, one truth at a time. The courtroom feels like a trap closing in. Each tick of the wall, clock another tooth in the mechanism. I sit at the witness stand, my carefully prepared testimony crumbling, as Ryan's lawyer circles like a shark that smells blood. Ms. Carter, isn't it true that you developed the original security protocols while employed at TechCore? Yes, and these protocols were company property, correct? His smile reminds me of Ryan's. Practiced, predatory. The base code was, the modifications were made by my client under authorized company directives. He slides a document across to the judge. Exhibit C, Mr. Carter's project authorization, signed by the board. Mark shifts in his seat, his face dark. We hadn't known about this document. Another of Ryan's chess moves, played perfectly. Ms. Carter, the lawyer continues, please explain to the court how you obtained the tracking data on my client's movements. My throat tightens. This is the trap, the one Ryan warned me about. I used a modified version of company proprietary software you no longer had legal access to. The judge leans forward. Ms. Carter, did you illegally access company systems to track your husband? The courtroom spins. Everything I'd built, all the evidence I'd gathered, Ryan's lawyer is turning it against me, piece by piece. I catch Emily's eye in the gallery. She looks away. Your Honor, Mark's lawyer interjects. The defendant's activities were instrumental in uncovering corporate espionage. Ryan's lawyer cuts in smoothly. My client was conducting an authorized internal investigation into security breaches. Ms. Carter's unauthorized surveillance actually compromised that investigation. My hands grip the witness stand. The lie is so perfect, so carefully constructed. Ryan isn't just destroying my credibility, he's rewriting history. Furthermore, his lawyer produces another document. We have evidence that Ms. Carter attempted to access offshore accounts using company resources. Those were Ryan's accounts. I protest, but my voice sounds weak even to me. Accounts used in the authorized investigation, which you attempted to compromise. The judge calls a recess, but the damage is done. In the hallway, Mark approaches with his lawyer, their faces grim. He planned this, Mark says, quietly. The board authorization, the investigation cover story. He's been setting this up for months. What about the patent sales, the stolen money? All documented under official company operations. Mark's lawyer shakes his head. He had paperwork for everything. We can't prove it was fraudulent without my testimony. I lean against the wall, feeling the cold marble against my spine, which he just destroyed. Olivia appears, clutching her phone. Fiona, it's worse. Someone leaked your tracking software to the press. They're calling it corporate surveillance, saying you were spying on multiple employees. Ryan, I whisper, of course. He's not just discrediting my testimony. He's making me the villain of the story. Grace passes by with her lawyer, not meeting anyone's eyes. She's cut a deal, I realize. Ryan's offered her immunity in exchange for supporting his version of events. My phone buzzes. An email from the district attorney. They're considering charges against me for corporate espionage and illegal surveillance, the very crimes I was trying to expose. We can fight this, Mark starts, but I shake my head. He wins. The words taste like ash. He took everything I had, my marriage, my career, my reputation, and turned it into a weapon against me. Emily approaches hesitantly, holding a newspaper. The headline makes my stomach lurch. Tech wife's revenge. Plot exposes corporate privacy concerns. I'm sorry, she whispers. I never thought he would. None of us did. I push away from the wall, walking toward the courthouse doors. Outside, reporters wait with cameras and microphones, ready to capture my fall from grace. Behind me, I hear Olivia calling my name, but I keep walking. 3 years of marriage, 15 years of career experience, a lifetime of trust and justice. All of it lies shattered on the courthouse floor. Ryan's words from the detention center echo in my head. You have no idea what you're starting. He was right. I thought I was fighting for truth, for justice, for revenge. Instead, I walked right into his perfect trap, becoming the villain in his carefully crafted story. The cameras flash as I push through the courthouse doors. Each burst of light, another nail in the coffin of my old life. Sometimes revenge doesn't just fail, it becomes the very thing that destroys you. The USB drive feels impossibly small in my hand as I stand outside Ryan's office. Through the glass walls, I can see him at his desk, basking in his courtroom victory. The security badge clipped to my blouse, courtesy of Mark's last act before his resignation, might be my final chance to set things right. Mrs. Carter, Ryan's assistant, blinks in surprise. I didn't think. It's fine, Sarah. Ryan's voice carries that familiar condescending warmth. Let her in. I think my wife and I are overdue for a chat. The door clicks shut behind me. Ryan leans back, adjusting his tie, the blue one I gave him for our second anniversary. Come to concede defeat properly? Instead of answering, I plug the USB drive into his computer. His smile falters as dozens of windows pop up on his screen. What is this? The truth. My voice stays steady as I perch on the edge of his desk. Not the sanitized version you fed the court, the real logs, showing every transaction, every meeting, every lie. He starts to reach for the computer, but I catch his wrist. Touch it, and these files automatically upload to every board member, the SEC, and 3 major tech blogs. You're bluffing. But uncertainty creeps into his voice. The court already ruled. The court ruled on what they could prove. But you taught me well, Ryan. Sometimes the best revenge isn't about winning. It's about having better leverage. His screen fills with more documents. The real board authorizations, showing his forgeries. Grace's original emails, detailing their plan. The actual financial trails he thought he'd hidden. How did you get access? You really should change your passwords more often. Emily Carter 58 isn't exactly cryptographic genius. The color drains from his face as he scrolls through the files. This will destroy everything. The company, the deals, your perfect facade. I stand, moving toward the door. That's the point. Wait. He rises, desperation replacing his usual confidence. We can make a deal, whatever you want. Money, position, full confession. Like the deal you made with Grace? The words strike like physical blows. Or the one you made with those tech companies, selling out everything I built? I did it for us. He slams his hand on the desk. Everything I built, every move I made, was for yourself. Emily's voice cuts through the room. She stands in the doorway, holding her own USB drive. I found your original plans, Ryan. From before you even met Fiona. Ryan's face contorts. Mother, you don't understand. I understand perfectly. Emily steps inside, closing the door. I understood when I found your notes about targeting Fiona for her expertise. I understood when I discovered your offshore accounts, the ones you've had since before the marriage. You helped me destroy her credibility. He snarls. You sided with me. I protected you, like I always have. Emily's voice cracks. But I can't protect you from this. His computer chimes. New windows opening. Board members responding to emergency messages. Security alerts flashing across the screen. What have you done? Ryan whispers. Nothing you haven't already done to yourself. I move toward the door. The board has everything now. The real documents, the genuine trails. Your perfect trap is about to snap shut on you instead. He lunges for his phone, but it's already too late. Through the glass walls, we can see security approaching, followed by stern-faced board members. "You'll go down with me," he threatens. "Everything you did was documented and authorized." I hold up another drive. Mark signed off on my internal investigation before he resigned. Everything I did was legal, unlike your corporate espionage. The door opens. Board members file in, their faces grim. Ryan straightens his tie one last time, trying to summon his old confidence, but it crumbles under the weight of truth. "Sometimes," I say quietly, "the best revenge isn't about destroying someone. It's about letting them destroy themselves." As security escorts Ryan out, Emily touches my arm. "I'm sorry I didn't see it sooner." We see what we want to see. I watch Ryan disappear down the hallway, his shoulders finally slumped in defeat. Until we can't anymore, the board chairman approaches with a thick envelope. "Mrs. Carter, we'd like to discuss your future with the company." I take the envelope, feeling its weight, not just paper, but possibility. Sometimes revenge doesn't end in destruction. Sometimes it ends in resurrection. The corner office still smells of fresh paint and new beginnings. My laptop screen glows with lines of code. Not weapons or traps this time, but shields. Protection. The irony doesn't escape me that I'm rebuilding the very security systems Ryan tried to destroy. A knock at the door interrupts my coding flow. Olivia stands there, holding a newspaper. "Thought you might want to see this." The headline reads, "Tech Executive Pleads Guilty to Corporate Espionage." Below it, a smaller headline, "Former Employee Appointed Head of Security Division." "Strange," Olivia says, perching on my desk. "They didn't mention you were his wife." "Ex-wife." I close the newspaper. And that's exactly how I want it. My phone buzzes. A text from Emily. "Signed the house over today. It's yours now." I type back a quick thank you, remembering our last conversation in the kitchen, where everything started. She'd said something that stuck with me. Sometimes the strongest walls aren't the ones we build around ourselves, but the ones we tear down. The elevator chimes, and Grace steps out, clutching a cardboard box. Her eyes meet mine through the glass walls. For a moment, we just look at each other, two women who trusted the same lie. She sets the box by the reception desk and leaves without a word. Inside, I know I'll find the evidence she kept as insurance against Ryan, now surrendered as her final act of penance. The board meeting starts in 10, Olivia reminds me. "Ready to present the new security protocols?" I stand, smoothing my blazer. "Almost. Just need to finish this last sequence." My fingers fly over the keyboard, adding one final layer to the system. Not just protection against external threats, but internal ones too. A safeguard against the kind of manipulation and betrayal that Ryan specialized in. "You know," Olivia says quietly, "when you first found those withdrawals, I thought you were going to destroy him." I did too. I save the code and close my laptop. But revenge isn't always about destruction. Sometimes it's about reconstruction. The conference room fills with board members, their faces expectant. As I set up my presentation, I catch a glimpse of my reflection in the window. No longer the housewife who wouldn't understand, but not quite the same engineer I was before either. Something new, forged in the fire of betrayal and tempered by choice. My phone buzzes one last time. An unknown number. "You were right. About everything. R." I delete the message without responding. Some bridges aren't meant to be rebuilt. "Mrs. Carter?" The board chairman gestures for me to begin. "Show us what you've created." I stand before them, my presentation ready, but instead of launching into technical specifications, I start with a simple truth. Security isn't just about keeping threats out. It's about recognizing them before they become part of your foundation. The board members lean forward, interested. Through the glass walls, I can see Olivia giving me a thumbs up, while Emily waves from the reception area, dropping off lunch like she still does sometimes. Not out of obligation now, but choice. My new security system fills the screen behind me. Complex, elegant, and unlike anything Ryan could have twisted or sold. Because this time, it's built not just with code, but with understanding. Understanding of how trust can be weaponized, how love can blind, and how strength sometimes means letting go of the very revenge you thought you needed. The system has one unique feature, I explain, pulling up the final screen. It learns from every attempt to breach it, growing stronger not by building higher walls, but by understanding why people try to climb them in the first place. As I launch into the technical details, I realize that's exactly what I've done too. Grown stronger not by destroying Ryan, but by understanding how he almost destroyed me. The revenge I thought I wanted has transformed into something else entirely. Not an ending, but a beginning. The code on the screen pulses with possibility, each line a promise of protection, each function a lesson learned. Sometimes the best revenge isn't about getting even. Sometimes it's about getting better. And sometimes, just sometimes, it's about building something so strong that the past becomes nothing more than a shadow against its walls.
I was folding laundry in the quiet of our suburban home when the phone rang. It was an ordinary Thursday, but that phone call was about to shatter the mundanity of my life. I wiped my hands on my apron as I answered. "Hey, Mom, it's Lucas," came the voice of my son, who had ventured out into the world, leaving the nest for college 2 years ago. "Lucas, darling, is everything okay?" I asked, a smile naturally forming on my lips at the sound of his voice. There was a pause, a hesitation I wasn't used to with Lucas. "Mom, I need to ask you something. Where's Dad these days?" I frowned slightly, puzzled. "Your father? He's been really busy with work. He's staying at the company's apartment for a while." "Why do you ask?" Another pause, longer this time. Lucas's voice, when it came, was laden with uncertainty. "Mom, I think Dad's company doesn't have any company apartments." My heart skipped a beat. "How do you know that?" "Well, I was at this job fair, and I overheard some people talking about Dad's company. They said there aren't any company apartments. Mom, is it possible that Dad is lying to us?" The room suddenly felt colder, the walls closing in. I struggled to maintain my composure. "Lucas, are you sure? Maybe you misunderstood." "No, Mom, I'm sure, and I think Dad is seeing someone else." The words hit me like a physical blow. "Lucas, that's a serious accusation. Are you sure you're not mistaken?" "I wish I were, Mom. I saw Dad with this woman younger, maybe in her 20s. They seemed close. Too close." My hands trembled, the phone almost slipping from my grasp. The man I had spent 20 years of my life with, could he really betray us like this? "Mom, are you there?" Lucas's voice was laced with concern. I took a deep breath, trying to steady my voice. "Yes, I'm here. Lucas, thank you for telling me. I need some time to think about this. We'll figure this out, Mom. I'm here for you," he said firmly. After I hung up, I sat at the kitchen table, the unfinished laundry forgotten. My mind raced with questions and fears. Had I been so blind? Was the love and trust I invested in my marriage a mere facade? The thought of Mark with another woman, especially someone Lucas's age, churned my stomach. I had to find out the truth. But how? The idea of confronting Mark terrified me. Yet the thought of living in ignorance was even worse. I needed answers, and I was determined to get them, no matter how painful they might be. As the sun set outside, casting long shadows across the room, I realized that my once peaceful life was now on the brink of a storm, and I had to brace myself for whatever was coming. Saturday morning dawned with a heaviness that seemed to mirror my mood. Mark was due to visit this weekend, but the thought no longer brought me joy. The words of my son, Lucas, echoed in my mind, tainting every memory I had of Mark. As I prepared breakfast, the doorbell rang. It was my in-laws, George and Helen, arriving for their weekly visit. Despite the turmoil within, I greeted them with a forced smile. "Emma, dear, you look a bit off. Is everything all right?" Helen asked, her sharp eyes missing nothing. "Just a headache," I lied, unwilling to burden them with my suspicions. We sat around the breakfast table, chatting about mundane things. But my heart wasn't in it. My gaze kept drifting to Mark's empty chair, a stark reminder of the growing distance between us. When the topic turned to Mark, Helen's tone was warm. "He's been working so hard lately. You must be proud of him, getting that big project at the office." I nodded, my throat tight. "Yes, very proud." George, always the jovial one, chimed in. Remember how he used to say he'd be a big shot one day? Looks like he was right. Their pride in their son was palpable, and it twisted the knife in my heart further. How could I shatter this image they had of Mark? The loving son, the dedicated husband. But beneath that facade lay a different truth, one that Lucas had unwittingly uncovered. As they continued to praise Mark, a part of me wanted to scream, to tell them that their perfect son was a liar, a cheat. But I couldn't, not without proof. The rest of their visit passed in a blur. I was there, but not really. My mind was elsewhere, caught in a storm of betrayal and hurt. After they left, I found myself wandering through the house, lost in thought. Our home, once a haven of love and security, now felt like a house of cards, ready to collapse at any moment. I stumbled upon a photo album, pages filled with pictures of happier times. Mark and I laughing, holding each other. Was it all just a lie? Had I been living a dream while he lived a double life? That evening, as I lay in bed, sleep eluded me. I realized that I couldn't let this go. I needed to confront Mark, to hear the truth from his lips. Whatever that truth might be, I was ready to face it. I had to be. For my own sanity. And deep down, a part of me yearned for revenge. If Mark had shattered our vows, then he didn't deserve my silence. He didn't deserve the facade of a happy family that I had helped build. As the night deepened, so did my resolve. I would confront Mark, and if my fears were confirmed, he would pay for his betrayal. In what way, I wasn't sure yet, but he would pay. Monday arrived with a sense of foreboding. I had spent the weekend in turmoil, oscillating between denial and a desire for the truth. Today I decided I would confront Mark. As the clock ticked closer to the time Mark was due to arrive, my anxiety grew. My hands trembled as I prepared coffee, each spoonful of sugar sounding unnervingly loud in the silent kitchen. The doorbell rang, jolting me from my thoughts. Taking a deep breath, I opened the door. Mark stood there, his smile faltering slightly as he noticed my somber expression. "Emma, what's wrong?" he asked, stepping inside. I led him to the living room, my heart pounding. "We need to talk, Mark." He looked concerned now, his eyes searching mine. "Of course, anything." I took a deep breath, the words I had rehearsed all weekend spilling out. "Lucas called. He said something disturbing about you being unfaithful." Mark's reaction was immediate, his face flushed, his eyes darting away. "Lucas said what? That's ridiculous, Emma." But his denial lacked conviction, his voice betraying him. I pressed on, the hurt and anger giving me strength. "He saw you, Mark, with a younger woman. He's convinced you're having an affair." Mark's posture stiffened, his expression hardening. "Lucas is mistaken. I can't believe you'd think I'd do something like that." But the more he denied, the clearer the truth became. His body language, the evasion in his eyes, it all pointed to one painful reality. Mark was lying. "Are you really going to stand there and lie to me, Mark?" My voice trembled with emotion. "After all these years, you owe me the truth." For a moment he looked like he might confess. But then his face closed off, his voice cold. "I have nothing to confess, Emma. If you choose to believe Lucas over me, then that's your problem." His words felt like a slap in the face. The man I had loved, trusted, and supported was now a stranger, hiding behind a veil of lies and deceit. The conversation spiraled into an argument, accusations and denials flying. But no confession came. Mark maintained his innocence, even as his lies crumbled around him. Finally, exhausted and emotionally drained, I ended the confrontation. "I can't do this anymore, Mark. I don't know who you are." Mark left, his departure leaving a cold void in the house. I sat there alone, the weight of his betrayal crushing me. But amidst the pain, a fire was kindling within me. A fire fueled by betrayal and the desire for revenge. Mark had chosen to deceive and hurt me. Now, it was my turn to make him pay for his lies. I didn't know how yet, but I was determined. Mark would not get away with this. He would feel the consequences of his actions, just as I was feeling the pain of his betrayal. The days following my confrontation with Mark were a blur of emotions. Betrayal, anger, and disbelief swirled within me, a constant storm. But amidst the chaos, a new resolve was forming. I wouldn't be a victim. I would fight back. One morning, as I sat at the kitchen table going through our finances, the reality of my situation became starkly clear. Mark had always controlled the money, and now I was left with barely enough to cover the bills. The thought of asking him for more was intolerable. Determined, I decided to take control of my life. I started looking for a job, something I hadn't done since before Lucas was born. I scoured the classifieds, sent out resumes, and finally I got a call for an interview at a local retail store. The interview day arrived, and as I sat across from the store manager, Mr. Thompson, I felt a mix of nerves and determination. His questions were straightforward, and I answered them as best as I could, emphasizing my eagerness to learn and adapt. "You've been out of the workforce for a while," Mr. Thompson noted, his tone neutral. "Yes," I admitted, "but I'm ready to start again. I'm hardworking and quick to learn." Mr. Thompson nodded, his expression softening. "All right, Mrs. Thompson, we're willing to give you a chance." Gratitude flooded through me. This was more than a job. It was a step towards my independence. As I started working, I found a sense of empowerment that I hadn't felt in years. Each day at the store was challenging, but it was also liberating. I was making my own money, no longer solely dependent on Mark. However, my newfound independence seemed to irk Mark. He started calling me, his tone oscillating between condescension and anger. "Why do you need to work?" he sneered during one call. "I provide for you, don't I? Or are you trying to make a point?" His words stung, but they also fueled my resolve. "I'm working because I want to be independent, Mark. I'm not your puppet anymore." There was a pause, and then he laughed, a cold, mocking sound. "Well, if you're so independent, maybe I should stop supporting you altogether. See how you like that." The threat was clear, but I refused to be intimidated. "Do what you must, Mark. I will survive, with or without your support." After that call, Mark cut the financial support he had been giving me. It was a blow, but not an unexpected one. I tightened my belt, budgeted rigorously, and focused on my job. As the days passed, my anger towards Mark turned into something else, a burning desire for revenge. He thought he could control me, break me. But he was wrong. I was stronger than he knew. I started to plan, to think of ways to expose him for what he was. A cheater, a liar, a manipulator. I wanted him to feel a fraction of the pain he had caused me, and I was willing to do whatever it took to make that happen. The opportunity for my revenge presented itself unexpectedly. Mark's parents, George and Helen, invited us for a family dinner, a tradition we had maintained for years. This time, however, the dinner was anything but ordinary for me. It was the stage where Mark's facade would crumble. I arrived early to help with preparations, my heart heavy yet determined. Helen noticed my subdued mood, but attributed it to stress. Little did she know the turmoil that churned within me. As we were setting the table, the doorbell rang. It was Mark, his usual confident self, unaware of the storm that was about to hit him. Following him was Lucas, my son, the bearer of the truth. Dinner commenced with light conversation, but the air was heavy with unspoken words. I glanced at Lucas, giving him a subtle nod. It was time. Lucas cleared his throat, commanding the attention of the table. "There's something I need to say, something about Dad." Mark laughed it off. "What is it, son? Another one of your pranks?" But Lucas's expression was grave. "No, Dad, this is serious. I saw you with another woman. Not just once, multiple times." The room went silent. Mark's face turned ashen, his confident demeanor faltering. "What are you talking about, Lucas?" "That's nonsense," Mark stammered, but his voice lacked conviction. Lucas's gaze was unwavering. "I saw you, Dad. You were with her at a hotel. She's young, about my age. You can't deny it." Helen gasped, her hand flying to her mouth. George's face hardened, his eyes narrowing at Mark. "Is this true, Mark? Are you cheating on Emma?" Helen's voice was a whisper, laced with disbelief and pain. Mark's facade finally broke. He looked from face to face, realizing the gravity of the situation. "It's not what you think. She's just a colleague." But his weak defense fell on deaf ears. The damage was done. George stood up, his voice thundering. "You bring shame to this family. How could you do this to Emma, to your own son?" Mark tried to argue, to justify his actions, but his words were empty, hollow. The truth was laid bare for all to see. I watched, a mix of satisfaction and sorrow in my heart. Mark had been exposed. His betrayal, his lies, all out in the open. But the pain it caused his parents, the disappointment in Lucas's eyes, was a bitter pill to swallow. The dinner ended abruptly, the family shattered by the revelation. Mark left, his head hung low, his image as the perfect son, the perfect husband, destroyed. As I drove home that night, a part of me felt vindicated, but another part grieved for the loss of the family I once knew. Yet amidst the chaos, I knew one thing for certain. Mark would pay for his betrayal. This was just the beginning of his downfall. The fallout from the dinner was immediate and far-reaching. Mark's betrayal had not only fractured our family, but also stained his reputation. His parents, once his staunchest supporters, were now his fiercest critics. In the following weeks, I watched as Mark's life began to unravel. His affair, once hidden in the shadows, was now public knowledge, and the consequences were devastating. His work suffered, friends distanced themselves, and even our son, Lucas, struggled to come to terms with his father's actions. But amidst the chaos, a plan formed in my mind, a plan for retribution. Mark had taken so much from me, it was time he understood the pain he had inflicted. I began by reaching out to a lawyer, a friend from before I married Mark. I explained my situation, the years of emotional neglect, and Mark's recent infidelity. She was sympathetic and immediately offered to help. "We'll make sure you get what you deserve, Emma. It's time for Mark to face the consequences of his actions," she said with determination. Armed with legal support, I confronted Mark about a divorce. He was taken aback, his arrogance faltering under the weight of his crumbling world. "Emma, please, let's talk about this. I know I made a mistake, but I can change," he pleaded, a shadow of his former self. But I was resolute. "It's too late for that, Mark. You've made your choices, and now you must live with them." The divorce proceedings were messy, as Mark tried to cling to his rapidly diminishing assets. But my lawyer was relentless, and in the end, I was awarded a significant portion of our shared assets, including the house. As Mark's world crumbled, I began to rebuild mine. The divorce had granted me a substantial settlement, which I used to secure my financial independence. I continued working, finding solace and strength in my newfound autonomy. The final blow to Mark came unexpectedly. His affair with the younger woman, now his only solace, ended abruptly. She left him, unable to cope with the public scrutiny and the reality of being with a man whose life was in ruins. Mark was left alone, a shadow of the man he once was. His career, his reputation, his personal life, all had fallen apart because of his choices. As for me, I found peace in my independence. I reconnected with old friends, explored new hobbies, and even began dating again, something I hadn't thought possible. The path to healing was long and fraught with challenges, but I emerged stronger, wiser, and more resilient. Mark's betrayal had broken me, but in the end, it had also freed me. I had faced my deepest fears and come out victorious. And though I took no pleasure in Mark's downfall, there was a sense of justice in seeing him face the consequences of his actions. He had chosen his path, and now he had to walk it alone. As I looked to the future, I knew that new horizons awaited me, horizons filled with hope, strength, and the promise of a life lived on my terms.
Being with you just makes me poorer, so I want a divorce. You can have the kid, just pay me $80,000. When I got home, my husband, Ned, suddenly brought up divorce. Up until today, I had been very devoted to supporting him. Unforgivable. I will definitely make him regret this. Without showing my feelings, I coldly responded to him. Fine. My casual response must have shaken Ned. But it's too late. From now on, you're going to see hell. My name is Sandra Irving. I'm a 25-year-old front desk clerk at a hotel. Last year, I married Ned, my boss at the time. I became pregnant at the beginning of this year and left the company. The workplace I left was warm and comfortable to the very end, celebrated by everyone. Since then, I have been a full-time housewife, working hard on housework and childcare. Our newborn son cries a lot at night and doesn't drink well. Despite the chaos of having a child for the first time, Ned had been devotedly supportive. However, Ned suddenly changed one day. He used to be proactive with household chores and took care of the child. But his recent behavior has been strange. "I've got a work dinner tonight, so I won't need dinner." That's a lot, huh? I understand for a sales job, but it's tough when it's you all the time. You gotta do what you gotta do. I'm off. There were never weekly drinking parties when I was working. Especially since he was like the head of the restaurant department. Such meetings were supposed to be during working hours. It was unheard of him to go to drinking parties after work, even when our son was born. But recently, this lifestyle has become the norm. I convinced myself that things must have changed since my time. However, that led to suspicions due to Ned's certain behavior. I'm home. Is the bath ready? Welcome back. It's ready. Ned seemed unusually happy when he returned from the drinking party, and strangely sober. Which made me question his expression. Ned, you're usually not good with alcohol, but you seem fine today.
Oh, yeah.
Didn't drink much. Ned appeared greatly disturbed by my casual remark. Another surprise was nearby him. It wasn't the smell of alcohol but the scent of women's perfume. Usually, he would have a drink with snacks as soon as he got home, but today was different. He immediately asked for a bath. At that moment, a sense of discomfort arose in me. You usually come home drunk after being forced to drink so much? Today the sales manager wasn't there next to me. Thanks to that. Don't sweat the small stuff. Just worry about your chores. People often express lies through negative words and speed up their speech without realizing it. Ned was particularly prone to taking a domineering attitude. Hearing his words, I instantly sensed his guilt. Despite this, he continued to go to drinking parties. And there were times when he came home early in the morning. I was convinced that Ned is keeping something from me. When he returned home early one morning and left for work without sleeping. This is Ned's phone. He had unusually left his phone on the sofa, and I found it. While holding the phone and contemplating whether to bring it to him, Ned returned home. Seeing me with his phone, he snatched it back with a look of disgust. What are you doing touching someone else's phone? Huh? I was just wondering whether to bring it to you since you left it here. Shut up. You didn't look, did you? While he quickly put the phone in his chest pocket, he glared at me with a look of contempt. The way he looked at me made me more certain. He thought it would be bad if I saw what I shouldn't see. This might be the moment, I thought. But if it's another woman, it would be bad to confront him now and have him delete the evidence. I haven't looked. I wouldn't stoop so low. What's with that tone? Who do you think is feeding you? Know your place. Trying to intimidate with power, Ned slammed his bag onto the table. He was trying to dominate me through force. If I were alone, I would talk back and leave the house right now. But I can't do that with my precious son here. Who knows what could happen? I need to endure. Endure and expose Ned's wrongdoing. I clenched my fists hard, desperately trying to control my anger with pain. As if sensing my feelings, our son, who was sleeping in another room, woke up and realized I wasn't there. I could hear his desperate cries calling for me. Shut him up already. His irritable shout made me flinch, and I could almost see him raising his fist. I shrank from his menacing look. How did our relationship come to this? At the beginning of our marriage, there was nothing like this. But upon reflection, maybe I was just blind. His behavior had always hinted at something like this. In the early days of our marriage, Ned insisted on meticulous household rules. Clean the toilet after every use, never leave dishes in the sink. He demanded that meals only be eaten after all the dishes were washed. And the sink was scrubbed clean. I was expected to clean up after every meal Ned ate and take care of all the laundry. If his shoes were dirty, it was up to me to notice and clean them without being asked. I remember these directives led to arguments between us, as I was overwhelmed by the constant demands. The amount of housework has increased compared to when I lived at my parents' house. And on top of that, there's childcare. Ned, who initially helped out, is now acting like this. Why did I get married in the first place? I've reached my limit in this environment, where I feel like I'm doing more work than a housemaid. Especially with his treatment now. I've reached my breaking point and want to divorce him. I want to grab my son and flee this house right now. It was during these thoughts that a turning point arrived. Sandra, what is this? It was about a month after I started digging into Ned's affairs. I had just put my son to sleep and was finally enjoying some alone time when Ned confronted me with a picture. It was a snapshot of a pleasant coffee time with a former colleague from my previous job. What are you doing so leisurely outside while I'm at work? I finished the housework and went out for some coffee to stretch my legs. What's wrong with that? Where do you get the money for this? You've been wasting the living expenses I give you. Ned mistakenly believed that I had misused the living expenses on non-essential things. Without listening to my side, he started yelling loudly. At that moment, our son, who was supposed to be sleeping, woke up and began to cry loudly. Shut up. Stop wailing. Despite the fact that our son was crying in another room, Ned went out of his way to enter the room and scold him. At that moment, feeling the need to protect my son, I stood in front of the door in a defiant stance, determined not to let him pass. Move it. No, I won't move. Do you even realize what you're trying to do? He's just a newborn baby. It's insane to yell at such a small child. Over the past few days, it seemed my eyes had been opened. Staying with this man would bring no happy future for either me or my son. I wanted to leave right away. I had enough reasons to leave. All that was left was to gather the funds to do so. I still couldn't raise my son alone. First, I needed to find a job. I had to look for one discreetly, not at my previous workplace. As I was thinking this, Ned forcefully pushed me aside, opened the door violently, and left it open as he coldly spoke. Get out. I don't need a wife who can't show respect to her husband. Pack your things and leave now. Wait, what are you saying? Don't be unreasonable. Just leave. You're an eyesore, you maggot. After using my money without permission and that arrogant tone. Who do you think you are? If you're going to talk back like that, I don't need you anymore. Take the kid and just disappear. Ned hurled insults at me and, while shoving our crying son and my belongings at me, he threw us out the front door. He locked the door, making it completely impossible for me to return home. I was left wandering the streets with my newborn son. In the quiet back alley late at night, only my son's sad cries echoed. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. Because I was such a failure as a parent. I'm really sorry for putting you through this hardship. Fearing a disturbance report from the neighbors, I quickly moved to a park. Holding my son tightly to keep him warm, ensuring he felt my presence. As I apologized over and over, determined to protect him at all costs. I planned to seek help from the city office or somewhere else once the sun rose. Just then, as if to add insult to injury, it began to rain. Without an umbrella, I held my son close to shield him from the rain. And tears fell just like the raindrops. If only I had seen through Ned sooner and divorced him before our child was born. If I had been a stronger woman, none of this would have happened. Despairing over my helpless situation, an elderly man appeared. What's wrong? Why are you here at this time? Despite it being past 3 a.m., a well-dressed elderly man offered his umbrella to shelter me and my son. What happened to bring you and such a small child out here? The man, likely living in the grand house across the park, had heard the continuous crying of my son and came to check on us. Although it was suspicious to be approached by someone at such an hour, for some reason, I felt a sense of nostalgia towards the elderly man. As I shared the recent distressing events, He didn't say a word but covered my head with his towel and gently dried my hair. Come to my house. I have female servants who can help care for the baby. It's too cruel to spend the night here. Moved by his kind tone and compassion, my tears flowed endlessly. Accepting his invitation, I followed him with my sobbing son into his home, where a shocking truth would soon be revealed. Leave the rest to me. Nodding at his words, I decided to rest for the time being. His servants were kind and gladly took care of my son. Thanks to them, I was able to sleep soundly for the first time in a long while, waking up only in the afternoon. A female servant noticed my awakening and mentioned that my phone had been ringing a lot. She had refrained from waking me, considering my deep sleep. Grateful for their kindness, I checked the missed calls, unsurprisingly all from Ned. Likely, he couldn't prepare breakfast without me and was demanding I return immediately. His calls were typical of a hopeless husband, making me regret ever seeing anything good in him. Though I didn't want to return, ignoring him could lead to trouble with the police. Deciding to speak with Ned, I took my son and headed home once more. Thus began the fierce battle between me and Ned. You. Where have you been wandering around until now? Not preparing breakfast, leaving the house a mess. After such a stupid argument yesterday. You stubbornly didn't come home all night. I nearly snapped back, but I suppressed the urge to retaliate. How am I supposed to enter when the door is locked? And how would I know about the lack of breakfast? If you regret not being able to prepare it yourself, you shouldn't have driven me away. You're the smart one, aren't you? He always belittled me. A smart person like Ned would have avoided such a situation altogether. But in the end, he was the one in trouble. He should realize it's all his own doing. With that in mind, I goaded him by throwing his words back at him, and I saw his temples twitch. I've had it. I can't do this anymore. His anger must have reached its peak. I don't know when he prepared it. But Ned pulled a piece of paper from his room and slammed it on the living room table. We're getting a divorce. I never want to see your face again. There, on the table, lay the divorce papers with Ned's name on them. He must have thought I would panic upon seeing it. His face, expecting an apology, revealed his inner thoughts. But I wasn't going to play into his hands. I grabbed a pen from a nearby shelf and signed without hesitation. Understood. You're unusually compliant. With no job and no parents, you have nowhere to go. What are you going to do now? Despite his outward bravado, I could see the cold sweat on his forehead. The twitching corners of his mouth, and the look on his face said it all. Such a foolish man. While inwardly despising him, I quickly gathered my remaining belongings. Silent, huh? Well, fine. This feels refreshing. As I ignored his words and packed, Ned, seemingly carefree, delivered the final blow. Being with you just makes me poorer, so I want a divorce. You can have the kid, just pay me $80,000. Perhaps because I wasn't visibly shaken, Ned demanded a reckless amount of money. I was utterly astounded internally. He was trying to shake me with money, to rile me up. If we got into an argument, he could dominate the conversation and manipulate me. Then he would impose even more restrictions on me, making my life miserable while he freely enjoyed himself. Reading through Ned's transparent thoughts, I turned around with a broad smile and quickly responded. Fine. Hearing this, Ned visibly faltered and panicked. Do you understand? $80,000. $80,000. There's no way you can come up with that kind of money. Is that all you want to say? I'll transfer it by the end of the month. You handle the rest.
Bye.
And so, our divorce was finalized. As Ned instructed, I transferred a large sum of $80,000 to his account. I was aware of his affair and had gathered evidence. But I chose not to demand compensation from him. Because from now on, I plan to show him a hell that money can't redeem. 2 weeks later. When I woke up in the morning, my phone was bombarded with calls from Ned. It was finally happening. Ned would surely call again. Sure enough, he called. I didn't answer the first time, and on the second call, I hung up shortly after picking up. On the third call, I finally answered, and Ned, his voice raised and speaking rapidly, blurted out. You. What do you think you're doing? Are you messing with me? If I had answered on the first call, I could have kept the conversation calm and controlled. My actions on the second call were meant to frustrate him. Maintaining his irritation was essential. If he remained rational, my plan would be jeopardized. I needed to provoke his short temper and make him lose his cool. And on the third call, I deliberately chose not to start speaking. To keep the upper hand, I needed to keep him agitated. You're always so loud. I can adjust the volume on my phone, so there's no need to yell. What do you want? I'm quite busy, you know. While saying this, I elegantly sipped my coffee and flipped through a magazine. Busy was a lie. I was enjoying a leisurely day off with my son. Making it seem like I was too engaged in real life to bother with him was merely part of my rhetoric. What have you done? What are you talking about? I haven't done anything. Such a lie. In truth, I had taken everything from Ned. His wife, his job, his money, his family. I had stripped him of everything. That's a lie. Only you could have done such a thing. Give me back everything. You liar. Ned was crying bitterly over the phone. His pained cries almost amusing to me, and I laughed to myself. Why don't you try explaining what I did? I seem to have a bad memory these days. I can't remember a thing. Unlike him, destined for hell, I continued to enjoy my magazine and coffee time. He spoke to me in a fading voice, revealing shocking news. Immediately after our divorce, Ned remarried his current wife. Of course, I knew she had been his affair partner while he was married to me. It also turned out she was the daughter of a president of a client company. Apparently, Ned had concealed the fact that he was married. And on the day he proposed divorce, it was revealed that she was pregnant. Ned hurriedly divorced me and remarried her. Because she was connected to the largest contract among his clients. Thus, in a rush, Ned pushed for the divorce. His plan to divorce me succeeded, but that was just the beginning of his tragedy. First, he was kicked out of his house by his wife today. And she demanded a divorce because she found out about his previous marriage. Upon learning that I also have a child, she became furious. As she demanded compensation and announced the divorce, Ned panicked and lashed out at her. His rage was so severe that even his parents tried to intervene. He caused both mental and physical distress to his wife, leading her to report the situation at his workplace. The hotel he worked at decided they couldn't contract with someone like him and fired him. It was as if they clearly chose their business partners over him, and in one day, he lost both his wife and his job. Additionally, he had to use the entire $80,000 he received from me to pay for compensation and damages to the company, leaving him penniless. The damages to the company were so great that even $80,000 was not enough, and he had to use up all his savings. How did she know about my previous marriage? The only one who would do something like that is you. You stole my happiness. Ned screamed in frustration. I closed the magazine I was reading and decided to face him directly. His utter lack of remorse infuriated me. I had intended to just listen to him and hang up. But his continued refusal to reflect on his misdeeds was unbearable. I couldn't stand it. Stole your happiness? It's just karma. You cheated while you were with me, you were abusive to your wife leading to your divorce. And you got fired from your job, all because of your own actions. What did you say? You are nothing, and you dare to preach to me like that? You must be living a busy life because you can't support a kid on your own. This is the punishment for dumping me. He must have mistaken that I was working from morning to night. Holding up the magazine in front of me, I scorned him inwardly while politely delivering a sarcastic remark. I was busy reading a beauty magazine until just now, but I've finished. Now I'm thinking about having my second cup of coffee and maybe doing some knitting. What? How is that busy? Are you mocking me? Even over the phone, I could imagine him turning red and steaming like an octopus. My cheerful laughter probably irritated him even more. His shouting didn't stop. But even that was pleasant to me. I had been unable to say anything to him before, but now I was easily manipulating him. The unreachable environment where he could only shout was frustrating for him. And he demanded to see me immediately. Where are you? A phone call isn't enough. I'm coming over to your house right now. Sandra Irving, you're welcome to come, but you'll be turned away. I'll let the servants know that you're an outsider and absolutely not allowed in. Servants? Yes. I'm currently living in a mansion. With my father. I switched to a video call to show him the surprising scene. Chairman. Displayed on the screen was the elderly man who had helped me. And he was the chairman of his workplace. He was my father. Hello, Ned. Nice to meet you, perhaps? I'm Sandra's father. What? Huh? Father? How come? Chairman, I don't understand at all. Ned, who had been told I had no father, was visibly shaken. Even though I couldn't see his face, I could imagine his bewildered expression. Actually, I was divorced from Sandra's mother when she was pregnant with her. My parents had a romance despite their different social statuses. My father was the heir to a financial conglomerate, and my mother was a commoner. The child of a salaryman and an office lady. Grandmother disapproved of their marriage. And the entire family opposed it so vehemently that my father was disowned and lost all support. Seeing this, my mother broke up with him. And gave birth to me in a state where only recognition from the father was allowed. To avoid tarnishing the family name, they did not marry. But he recognized the child and sent child support every month. Unfortunately, mother passed away quite some time ago. I always wanted to meet Sandra and her family, but she was taught that I didn't exist in this world. It would have been too cruel to tell such a young child about her father's situation. Last year, my mother passed away. She asked my father to look after me, and it seems he cared for me from afar. I knew about your marriage because I was at the company. But that day, I was really surprised to see Sandra soaking wet in front of the house. You were being taken care of by the chairman that day? Yes. My father helped us when we were drenched. As I glared at him with a stern look, my father gently put his arm around my back and supported me. You said I had no economic power, didn't you? Unfortunately for you. I have inherited my father's company, and now my total assets are $13 million. I'm not petty enough to fuss over $80,000. That was all. The reason I wasn't shaken by the large sum of $80,000 that day was because my father had proposed this plan when he rescued us. That woman in the photo is the daughter of someone I know. I'll explain the situation to her partner, and they will divorce him soon. They are intelligent people, I think they will understand. Don't worry about any financial issues, I'll take care of everything. Sandra, you should prioritize yourself and your child. You are a precious keepsake from your mother. I won't let you be unhappy. Be at ease. With these words from my father, I easily agreed to the divorce. The amount demanded was transferred without hesitation. So, all this time, you were innocently manipulated by us. Have you finally understood, you fool? It's laughable that you think you're so smart. I snorted in derision, and he didn't respond, seemingly crestfallen. It was over. I truly felt it was hopeless, and there was nothing else to do but to back down. Thus, our fierce dispute came to an end. Ned never interfered with us again. Years later, my son became an elementary school student. Surrounded by my father and son, I led a fulfilling life, both professionally and personally. The servants were kind to us, and I finally felt I had captured the warmth of a family.
The slamming of the front door jolts me from my thoughts. Ethan storms into the living room, his face contorted with anger. "Where the hell have you been?" he demands, his voice dripping with accusation. "I was volunteering at the youth center," I reply calmly, trying to defuse the situation. "You know how much it means to me." "Oh, spare me the sob story, Vivian," Ethan scoffs. "You're supposed to be here, supporting me and my career. Instead, you're off playing saint to a bunch of delinquents." His words sting, but I refuse to let him see how much they hurt. "They're not delinquents, Ethan. They're kids who need guidance and support." "What they need is discipline and a swift kick in the ass," he retorts. "And what I need is a wife who understands her role." I feel my blood boil at his condescending tone. "My role? And what exactly is that, Ethan? To be your trophy wife? To sit at home and wait for you to grace me with your presence?" "Don't be so dramatic," he sneers. "You knew what you were getting into when you married me. I'm on the fast track to partner, and I need a wife who can keep up appearances." "Appearances?" I echo, disbelief coloring my voice. "Is that all our marriage is to you? A facade to impress your colleagues?" Ethan steps closer, his eyes narrowing. "Watch your tone, Vivian. Remember who pays the bills around here." The threat hangs heavy in the air, and I feel a chill run down my spine. Are you seriously going to hold that over my head? I gave up my job to move here for you, Ethan. I've sacrificed everything for this marriage. Sacrificed? He laughs humorlessly. You call sitting around all day, spending my money a sacrifice? You should be grateful for the life I've given you. Tears prick at the corners of my eyes, but I blink them back, refusing to give him the satisfaction of seeing me crumble. I am grateful, Ethan, but I'm also suffocating. I feel like I'm losing myself in this marriage. Then maybe you should find yourself a new hobby, he suggests coldly. One that doesn't involve neglecting your duties as my wife. And what about your duties as my husband? I counter, my voice rising. When was the last time you even asked about my day? Or showed any interest in my life? Ethan's jaw clenches, and for a moment I think he might actually hear me. But then he shakes his head, his expression hardening. I don't have time for this, Vivian. I have a career to focus on. If you can't handle that, then maybe we need to reevaluate this marriage. With that, he turns on his heel and stalks out of the room, leaving me standing there, my heart in pieces. I sink onto the couch, my mind reeling. How did we get here? How did the man I fell in love with turn into this cold, calculating stranger? I think back to the early days of our relationship, when Ethan was attentive and loving. We met at a charity event, both passionate about making a difference in the world. He swept me off my feet with his charm and ambition, and within a year we were married. But somewhere along the way, his career took precedence over everything else. And now, I'm left wondering if there's anything left of the marriage I thought we had. 2 years into our marriage, Ethan comes home with a bombshell announcement. I've been offered a partnership at a law firm in Los Angeles, he declares, a triumphant grin on his face. I stare at him, my heart sinking. Los Angeles? But what about my job, Ethan? My students? Come on, Vivian, he cajoles. This is a once-in-lifetime opportunity. You can always find another teaching job in L.A. It's not that simple, I argue, my voice strained. I've built a life here, Ethan. I have roots in this community. Ethan's smile fades, replaced by a look of annoyance. I thought you'd be happy for me, Vivian. This is a huge step up for us. For you, maybe, I counter. But what about what I want? What about my dreams? Dreams? He scoffs. You're a high school teacher, Vivian. How far do you think that's going to take you? His words cut deep, and I feel my eyes sting with tears. I can't believe you just said that. Teaching is my passion, Ethan. It's not just a job to me. Ethan sighs, running a hand through his hair. Look, I didn't mean it like that, but this is a once-in-a-lifetime chance, Vivian. We can't pass it up. I know he's right, but the thought of leaving everything behind feels like a knife twisting in my gut. Fine, I relent, my voice barely above a whisper. I'll take a sabbatical from teaching. Ethan's face lights up, and he pulls me into a hug. You won't regret this, Vivian. I promise. But as we pack up our life and prepare for the move, I can't shake the feeling that I'm making a terrible mistake. The day of the move arrives, and I find myself surrounded by boxes, my childhood home stripped bare. As I carefully wrap a framed photo of my parents, Ethan walks in, a look of disdain on his face. You're not seriously bringing that old junk, are you? He asks, eyeing the sentimental items I've carefully packed. They're not junk, Ethan, I defend, my voice tight. They're memories, pieces of my history. We're starting a new life, Vivian, he reminds me, his tone condescending. We don't need to drag the past along with us. I bite my tongue, not wanting to argue. But as I watch Ethan carelessly toss my treasured possessions aside, I feel a piece of myself crumble. We arrive in Los Angeles, and Ethan ushers me into our new home, a sleek, modern, high-rise apartment with floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the city. Isn't it perfect? He gushes, his eyes alight with excitement. I force a smile, trying to ignore the hollow feeling in my chest. It's lovely, Ethan. He wraps an arm around my waist, pulling me close. This is just the beginning, Vivian. I'm going to give you the life you've always dreamed of. But as I stare out at the unfamiliar skyline, I can't help but wonder if the life I've always dreamed of is the one I'm leaving behind. 6 months pass in a blur of cocktail parties and corporate dinners, Ethan's new role consuming his every waking moment. I find solace in volunteering at a local youth center, pouring my heart into mentoring troubled teens. But one evening, as I'm getting ready for a fundraiser, Ethan barges into the bedroom, his face twisted with rage. Are you seriously wearing that? He demands, eyeing my simple black dress with disdain. What's wrong with it? I ask, my voice trembling slightly. You look like a damn schoolmarm, he sneers. I need you to look the part of a successful lawyer's wife, not some frumpy volunteer. Tears sting my eyes, but I blink them back, refusing to let him see how much his words hurt. I'll change, I mumble, turning away. But as I slip into a designer gown and plaster on a fake smile, I can't shake the feeling that I'm slowly losing myself, piece by piece. 6 months into our new life in Los Angeles, Ethan's behavior takes a turn for the worse. He becomes increasingly distant and irritable, the stress of his demanding job taking a toll on our already strained relationship. I find solace in volunteering at the youth center, pouring my heart into mentoring the kids who have come to rely on me. But one evening, as I'm preparing to leave for a fundraising event, Ethan storms into the room, his face contorted with anger. Where do you think you're going? He demands, his voice dripping with disdain. To the youth center fundraiser, I reply, my heart sinking at the sight of his rage. I told you about it weeks ago. And I told you to prioritize our social obligations, he snaps. You're supposed to be at the law firm dinner with me tonight. I can't just abandon the kids, Ethan, I plead. They're counting on me. I'm counting on you, he roars, slamming his hand against the wall. Do you have any idea how embarrassing it is to have a wife who'd rather spend her time with a bunch of delinquents than support her husband's career? Tears sting my eyes, but I refuse to let them fall. They're not delinquents, Ethan. They're good kids who just need someone to believe in them. Believe in them? He scoffs. They're a lost cause, Vivian. Just like you'll be if you don't start prioritizing what's important. His words cut deep, but I stand my ground. I am prioritizing what's important, Ethan. Those kids need me. And what about what I need? He demands, his voice low and menacing. What about the sacrifices I've made for this family? Sacrifices? I echo, disbelief coloring my tone. You've been so focused on your career that you've barely even noticed me these past few months. Oh, I've noticed. He he sneers. I've noticed how you've let yourself go, how you'd rather wallow in self-pity than be the wife I need you to be. I reel back as if he slapped me, my heart shattering into a million pieces. How can you say that? I whisper, my voice trembling. I've given up everything for you, Ethan. My job, my home, my entire life. And now you'll give up this ridiculous volunteering, he demands, or I'll cut off your access to our joint bank account. I stare at him in shock, unable to believe what I'm hearing. You wouldn't dare. Try me, he says, his eyes cold and unforgiving. I'm done indulging your little charity projects, Vivian. It's time for you to fall in line. With that, he turns on his heel and storms out of the room, leaving me to collapse onto the bed, my body shaking with silent sobs. I feel trapped, suffocated by the weight of Ethan's expectations and the life I've found myself in. Over the next few weeks, I try to be the wife Ethan wants me to be. I attend his work functions, plastering on a fake smile and pretending to be the perfect corporate spouse. But inside, I'm dying a little more each day. I long for the fulfillment I once found in teaching, for the sense of purpose that volunteering at the youth center brought me. But every time I try to broach the subject with Ethan, he shuts me down, reminding me of my place in his life. One night, as we're getting ready for yet another work dinner, I finally muster up the courage to confront him. I can't do this anymore, Ethan, I say, my voice shaking. I'm miserable. I feel like I'm losing myself. He looks at me, his eyes cold and unfeeling. You're not losing yourself, Vivian. You're finding your place in this world, and that place is by my side, supporting my career. But what about my career? I plead. What about my dreams? Dreams, he scoffs. Grow up, Vivian. It's time to face reality. This is your life now, and the sooner you accept that, the better off we'll both be. I feel something break inside of me, the last shred of hope I'd been clinging to shattering into dust. And as I follow Ethan out the door, my heart heavy with despair, I can't help but wonder if I'll ever find my way back to the person I used to be. As the months drag on, the distance between Ethan and I grows wider with each passing day. I long for the connection we once shared, for the love that brought us together in the first place. And so one evening, I muster up the courage to broach the subject that's been weighing on my heart. Ethan, I say softly, my voice trembling. I've been thinking about starting a family. He looks up from his laptop, his eyes narrowing. A family? Now? Are you out of your mind, Vivian? His harsh tone catches me off guard, and I feel my heart sink. I just thought, with your career taking off and us settling into our new life here. Settling into our new life, he scoffs. I'm barely keeping my head above water at work, and you want to add a baby to the mix? But I thought you wanted children, I whisper, my voice barely audible. Maybe someday, he says dismissively, but not now, Vivian. I'm not ready for that kind of responsibility. His words cut deep, and I feel a piece of my dream for our future crumble. But I refuse to let him see how much he's hurt me. Instead, I force a smile and nod. Of course. You're right. It was a silly idea. Ethan returns to his work, and I'm left alone with my thoughts, my heart heavy with the weight of his rejection. In an attempt to find some semblance of purpose, I take a part-time job at a bookstore. At first, Ethan seems supportive, even happy that I'm getting out of the house. But as the weeks pass, his attitude begins to change. I don't like you spending so much time away from home, he grumbles one evening as I'm getting ready for my shift. It's just a few hours a week, Ethan, I remind him gently. And I thought you wanted me to find something to keep me busy. I wanted you to find a hobby, not a job, he retorts. What's next? You'll be neglecting your duties at home to pursue some silly career? I bristle at his words, my temper flaring. My duties at home? You mean waiting on you hand and foot, catering to your every whim? Watch your tone, Vivian, he warns, his eyes flashing with anger. I take a deep breath, trying to calm myself. I'm sorry, Ethan, I didn't mean to snap. I need something for myself, something that makes me feel valued. For a moment, his expression softens, and I think he might actually understand, but then he shakes his head, his jaw clenching. Fine. Do what you want, but don't come crying to me when it all falls apart. I leave for my shift with a heavy heart, wondering if I'll ever be able to find happiness in this new life we've built. A few days later, on a whim, Ethan and I buy lottery tickets. As we sit at the kitchen table, scratching off the numbers, I can't help but feel a flicker of hope. Maybe, just maybe, this could be our lucky break. But as the weeks pass and the drawing comes and goes, our tickets prove to be just another disappointment. Ethan barely seems to notice, too caught up in his own world to care about my foolish dreams. And then, just when I think things can't get any worse, Ethan comes home with news that turns my world upside down. "I got a promotion," he announces, a self-satisfied smirk on his face. For a moment, I allow myself to feel a glimmer of hope. Maybe this will be the thing that finally brings us back together, that reignites the spark we once shared. But as the days turn into weeks, Ethan's behavior only worsens. He becomes more demanding, more critical of my every move. Nothing I do seems to be good enough, and I find myself walking on eggshells, desperate to avoid his wrath. Late one night, as I lie awake in bed, listening to Ethan's steady breathing beside me, I can't help but wonder how we got here, how the man I once loved could have turned into such a monster. And as I stare up at the ceiling, my heart heavy with the weight of my own misery, I know one thing for certain. Something has to change. I can't keep living like this. I just don't know how much more I can take. Ethan's promotion seems to have only fueled his ego, and his treatment of me reaches new lows. One evening, he comes home late from work, reeking of alcohol and expensive perfume. "Where have you been?" I ask, trying to keep my voice steady. "Out with clients," he slurs, stumbling into the living room. "Not that it's any of your business." I feel a flare of anger at his dismissive tone. "It is my business, Ethan. I'm your wife." He laughs, a cruel, mocking sound. "Wife? Please. You're nothing but a burden, Vivian, a millstone around my neck." His words hit me like a physical blow, and I reel back, my eyes stinging with tears. "How can you say that? After everything I've done for you, for our marriage." "What have you done exactly?" he sneers. "Quit your job? Abandoned your friends? Moved across the country for me? You should be thanking me for giving you a purpose in life." I shake my head in disbelief, unable to comprehend the venom in his voice. "A purpose? You've taken everything from me, Ethan. My career, my dreams, my sense of self-worth." "Oh, spare me the pity party," he scoffs. "You're just jealous of my success. Jealous that I've made something of myself while you've been content to sit at home and play the martyr." "Jealous?" I echo, my voice rising. "I'm not jealous of your success, Ethan. I'm disgusted by what it's turned you into." He takes a step towards me, his eyes flashing with anger. "Watch yourself, Vivian. You don't want to push me too far." But I'm too far gone to heed his warning. "Or what? You'll leave me? Go ahead. I'd rather be alone than spend another minute with a man who treats me like dirt." For a moment he looks stunned, as if he can't believe I've dared to stand up to him. But then his face twists into a sneer, and he leans in close, his breath hot against my cheek. "You're nothing without me, Vivian. Nothing. And if you even think about leaving, I'll make sure you regret it for the rest of your miserable life." With that, he turns on his heel and storms out of the room, leaving me trembling in his wake. I sink onto the couch, my head in my hands, and let the tears come. How did I let things get this bad? How did I let myself become so weak, so dependent on a man who clearly doesn't love me? As I sit there, lost in my own misery, my phone buzzes with an incoming text. I glance at the screen, expecting to see a message from Ethan, but instead, I find myself staring at a name I don't recognize. Natalie. My heart stops. Who is Natalie? And why is she texting my husband at this hour of the night? With shaking hands, I open the message, my eyes widening as I read the words on the screen. "I had a great time tonight, Ethan. Can't wait to see you again soon. XOXO." I feel like I've been punched in the gut. Ethan is cheating on me. The late nights, the distant behavior, the cruel words. It all makes sense now. I confront him the moment he walks through the door, my voice shaking with anger and betrayal. "Who is Natalie, Ethan? And don't you dare lie to me." He looks at me, his eyes cold and unfeeling. "She's a colleague, a friend. Not that it's any of your business." "A friend," I echo, my voice rising. "Since when do friends send flirty texts in the middle of the night?" His face hardens, and he takes a step towards me, his fists clenched at his sides. "You went through my phone. How dare you?" "How dare I?" I shout, my temper flaring. "How dare you cheat on me, Ethan? How dare you treat me like garbage while you're off screwing some other woman?" "I want a divorce," he says flatly, his voice devoid of emotion. "I'm done with this marriage, Vivian. Done with you." His words hit me like a physical blow, and I stumble back, my vision blurring with tears. But even through the pain, I feel a flicker of something else. Something I haven't felt in a long time. Rage. Pure, unadulterated rage. And as I stand there, watching the man I once loved walk away from me, I make a vow to myself. I will make him pay for what he's done. I will make him suffer the way he's made me suffer. And I know just how to do it. Ethan's betrayal cuts deep, but I refuse to let him see how much he's hurt me. Instead, I channel my pain into planning my revenge. And the first step is to gather evidence of his infidelity. I hire a private investigator, a no-nonsense woman named Maria who assures me she'll get the proof I need. And sure enough, within a week, she presents me with a stack of photos and recordings that leave no doubt about Ethan's affair. I confront him with the evidence, my heart pounding in my chest as I watch the color drain from his face. "How could you do this to me, Ethan?" I ask, my voice trembling with a mixture of anger and hurt. "How could you throw away everything we had for some cheap fling?" He looks at me, his eyes cold and unfeeling. "Don't be so dramatic, Vivian. It was just sex. It didn't mean anything." His callousness takes my breath away, and I feel a wave of nausea wash over me. "Just sex? Is that all our marriage was to you? Just a convenient arrangement until something better came along?" He shrugs, his lips curling into a cruel smirk. "What can I say? I got bored. And Natalie, well, she knows how to keep things interesting." I shake my head in disbelief, unable to comprehend the depth of his betrayal. "You disgust me, Ethan. You're nothing but a selfish, manipulative bastard. And you're a pathetic, clingy little girl who can't accept that her husband has outgrown her," he sneers. "Face it, Vivian, you were never enough for me. You never will be." His words hit me like a physical blow, and I reel back, my eyes stinging with tears. But I refuse to let him see me cry. Not anymore. "Get out," I whisper, my voice low and dangerous. "Get out of my house and out of my life. I never want to see you again." He laughs, a harsh, mocking sound that echoes through the room. "Gladly. But don't think you're going to get a dime from me in the divorce. I'll make sure you end up with nothing, Vivian. Nothing." With that, he turns on his heel and storms out of the room, slamming the door behind him. I sink to the floor, my body shaking with silent sobs as the reality of what's just happened washes over me. But even through the pain, I feel a flicker of something else. Something I haven't felt in a long time. Hope. Because I know something Ethan doesn't. Something that will change everything. I've won the lottery. 2 weeks ago, on a whim, I bought a ticket for the Powerball jackpot, and against all odds, I hit the jackpot. $10 million, all mine. I've kept the news to myself, not wanting to give Ethan any reason to suspect that I might be planning something. But now, as I sit on the floor of our once shared home, I know exactly what I'm going to do. I'm going to make Ethan pay for what he's done. I'm going to hit him where it hurts the most, his wallet. I hire the best divorce attorney in town, a shark named Jack, who assures me he'll make sure I get everything I'm entitled to. And with the evidence of Ethan's infidelity on my side, he tells me I have a strong case for a generous settlement. But I don't want Ethan's money. I want to make him suffer. I want to watch him squirm as he realizes just how much he's underestimated me. And so, on the day of our divorce hearing, I walk into the courtroom with my head held high, my lottery ticket tucked safely in my purse. I watch as Ethan smirks at me from across the room, confident that he's going to walk away with everything. But then I take the stand, and I tell the judge everything. I tell him about Ethan's affair, about his cruel treatment of me throughout our marriage. And then, with a triumphant smile, I pull out my lottery ticket and hold it up for the world to see. "I don't want a dime from this man, Your Honor," I say, my voice ringing out clear and strong. "I have all the money I need, and then some. All I want is my freedom, and the satisfaction of knowing that Ethan will never be able to hurt me again." The look on Ethan's face as the judge grants me a divorce and orders him to pay my legal fees is one I'll never forget. And as I walk out of the courtroom, my head held high and my heart finally free, I know that I've won. Not just the lottery, but my life back. And that's a prize worth more than all the money in the world. With the divorce finalized and my lottery winnings secure, I feel a sense of freedom I haven't known in years. But even as I revel in my newfound independence, I can't shake the desire to make Ethan pay for what he's done. And so I set my plan into motion. I know that Ethan's law firm handles high-profile clients, including several major banks in the city. And I also know that he's been angling for a promotion to senior partner, a position that would put him in charge of managing those accounts. So I decide to hit him where it hurts. His reputation. I make an appointment at Ethan's bank, the same one he's been schmoozing with for months in the hopes of landing their business. And when I walk in, dressed to the nines and carrying a briefcase full of cash, I make sure everyone knows exactly who I am. I'd like to make a deposit, I say, my voice ringing out loud and clear across the lobby. $10 million to be exact. The teller's eyes widen, and I can see the wheels turning in her head as she tries to figure out who I am and where I got such a large sum of money. Of course, ma'am, she stammers, ushering me into a private room. We'll just need to verify the funds and fill out some paperwork. I smile, settling into a chair and crossing my legs. Take your time. I've got all day. As the teller scurries off to get her manager, I lean back and savor the moment. I can only imagine the look on Ethan's face when he finds out that his ex-wife, the woman he thought he'd broken, is now one of the bank's most valued clients. And sure enough, within minutes, the bank manager is falling all over himself to accommodate me. He offers me everything from a personal financial advisor to a VIP lounge pass, all the while assuring me that my money is in good hands. I just smile and nod, playing the part of the gracious client. But inside, I'm counting down the seconds until Ethan walks through that door. And when he finally does, his face a mask of shock and anger, I know I've won. "Vivian," he hisses, his eyes darting around the room as if he's afraid someone might overhear. "What the hell are you doing here?" I smile, my voice sweet as honey. "Just making a little deposit, darling. I thought you'd be happy to see me supporting your bank." His face turns red, and I can see the veins in his neck bulging with barely contained rage. "You're doing this on purpose, aren't you? Trying to humiliate me in front of my clients?" I shrug, my eyes wide with feigned innocence. "I have no idea what you're talking about, Ethan. I'm just a satisfied customer, here to do business with the best bank in town." He takes a step towards me, his fists clenched at his sides. "You little bitch, you think you're so clever, don't you? Well, let me tell you something. You may have won the lottery, but you're still nothing, and I'm going to make sure everyone knows it." But before he can say another word, the bank manager clears his throat, his voice nervous but firm. "Mr. Thompson, I'm going to have to ask you to leave. We don't tolerate that kind of language or behavior towards our clients." Ethan's face goes white, and I can see the panic in his eyes as he realizes the gravity of the situation. He's just insulted and threatened a high-value client in front of his boss, and there's no way he's going to come out of this unscathed. I apologize," he stammers, his voice shaking. "I didn't mean—" But it's too late. The damage is done. And as he's escorted out of the room by security, his head hanging in shame, I feel a rush of triumph that's almost intoxicating. I've hit Ethan where it hurts the most, his ego, and I know that this is just the beginning. He may have taken everything from me, but now I'm the one holding all the cards, and I'm going to make damn sure he never forgets it. News of Ethan's outburst at the bank spreads like wildfire, and within days he's facing disciplinary action from his firm. His clients start to pull their accounts, and his once promising career begins to crumble before his eyes. I watch from afar, savoring every moment of his downfall. But even as I revel in my revenge, I can't help but feel a twinge of something else, something that feels suspiciously like regret. And then one day I receive a phone call that changes everything. "Vivian?" Ethan's voice is weak, broken. "I need to see you, please." I hesitate, my heart pounding in my chest. Part of me wants to hang up, to leave him to wallow in his own misery. But another part of me, the part that once loved him, can't resist the plea in his voice. "Fine," I say, my voice cold. "But make it quick." We meet at a coffee shop near my old apartment, a place we used to frequent in happier times. Ethan looks like a shell of his former self, his eyes bloodshot and his skin pale. "I'm sorry," he says, his voice barely above a whisper, "for everything. I know I can't take back what I did, but I need you to know that I'm truly deeply sorry." I stare at him, my heart twisting in my chest. I want to believe him, to forgive him, but I can't. Not after everything he's put me through. "It's too late, Ethan. I say, my voice trembling. You had your chance, and you blew it. I'm done being your punching bag. He nods, his eyes filling with tears. I know, and I don't expect you to forgive me, but I need you to know that I'm going to get help. I'm going to be a better man, even if it's too late for us. I feel a lump rising in my throat, and I swallow hard. I hope you do, Ethan, for your sake and for the sake of anyone else who might cross your path. He looks at me, his eyes searching mine. What about you, Vivian? What are you going to do now? I take a deep breath, my mind racing with possibilities. And then, suddenly, I know exactly what I want to do. I'm going to start a foundation, I say, my voice growing stronger with each word. A foundation that helps women like me, women who have been beaten down and broken by men like you. I'm going to use my money to make a difference, to help others find their strength and their voice. Ethan stares at me, his eyes wide with surprise. That's amazing, Vivian. I'm proud of you. I nod, my heart swelling with pride. I'm proud of me too, Ethan, and I'm done letting you or anyone else dictate my worth. We part ways soon after, and as I walk out of the coffee shop, I feel a sense of peace wash over me. I know that I'll never forget what Ethan did to me, but I also know that I'm stronger because of it. And as I set to work on my foundation, pouring my heart and soul into helping other women find their power, I realize that this is what I was meant to do all along. I may have started out as a victim, but now I'm a survivor, and I'm going to make damn sure that no one ever forgets it. Months turn into years, and as my foundation grows and thrives, I find myself back in my hometown, teaching at the same high school where I started my career. I'm happy now, truly happy. I've found my purpose, my calling, and I know that everything I went through, every moment of pain and heartbreak was worth it to get me to where I am today. I may not have the perfect life, but I have a life that's all my own. And that's more than enough for me. As I stand in front of my classroom looking out at the eager faces of my students, I can't help but smile. I know that I'm exactly where I'm meant to be, doing exactly what I'm meant to do, and no one, not even Ethan, can take that away from me.